Chapter 1. In a dark room, the young man was lying lazily on the bed, mumbling to himself, "I didn't expect the owner of this body to be called Yi-chun as well. He looks like me. Could it be that this body was prepared for me?" In his previous life, Yi-chun was a physics student in a university in the 21st century. He was quite smart and observant. But because of an accident in the lab, all the machines exploded and his soul was sent to this world. If it was a normal person who was suddenly sent to a strange environment and their soul entered a strange body, they would definitely go crazy. But Yi-chun did not feel anything. He was just a little surprised. Thinking about this, Yi-chun started to wonder if he was a psycho. If he did not feel anything when something this big happened, then what else could he feel? In this short period of memory fusion, Yi-chun had already digested all the memories of this body. In the memory, he was a disciple of a big family. He entered the Sky Cloud Martial School at the age of 12 and became an outer disciple at the age of 14. The only thing that was criticized was that in the 2 years between the ages of 12 and 14, besides training his chi to the mortal realm stage 4, the body's owner did not make any progress in other areas. He had only trained the basic cloud sword art to the 3rd movement. Looks like if I want to survive in this world, I have to get rid of this stupid title. Yi-chun was not happy that the body's owner was called stupid. After all, they were now one, and he, who was not stupid, did not want to be called stupid. After making up his mind, Yi-chun rolled his eyes. He could not help but remember the things that happened before he was 12 years old. The Sky Cloud Martial School was located in the north of the Windy Nation. Together with the other 4 martial schools in the country, they were known as One Valley, One Village, 3 schools. Other than the 5 most powerful forces, the 8 big families control the Windy Nation's martial arts world. Even the royal court tried their best not to mess with them. And Yi-chun's family was one of the 8 big families, the Yi family. The Yi family developed more than 200 years ago. Their main business was tea and silk, and they had accumulated a huge amount of wealth. As the saying goes, no matter how much wealth you have, you still need to have enough strength to protect it. Otherwise, it would just be an unguarded piece of fat meat that everyone wanted to take a bite out of. After experiencing countless setbacks and extortion, the head of the Yi family at that time pondered over the painful experience and decided to use his strong financial resources to develop the family into a martial arts family to compete with other forces. That was how the Yi family, one of the 8 great families of today, came into being. As a descendant of the Yi clan, everyone had their eyes on the top of their heads when they went out. Others couldn't wait to curry favor with them, but Yi-chun wasn't one of them. The reason was that his cultivation talent was too terrible, which was extremely disappointing. Fortunately, her father was the current leader of the Yi family, and her mother was an outer elder of the Ridra Martial School, one of the top 3 martial schools, so no one dared to mock or disrespect them openly. Even so, Yi-chun was still bullied quite a bit. What he remembered the most was that his eldest uncle's son, his 2nd son, and his 3rd uncle's son would pick on him from time to time. They would even humiliate him in a secluded place. Even his maid, Chrysanthemum, was often looked down upon by the other maids. Every time, she would come to him and cry, complaining about her grievances. "Fuck, I have to get my revenge." Yi-chun's eyes were filled with hatred, and he clenched his fists tightly. It was not unreasonable for him to be so angry. Right now, he was a combination of 2 Yi-chuns. He had both the memories and emotions of his previous life and the memories and emotions of his current life. In other words, both Yi-chuns were him, and there was no difference between them. No matter which one of Yi-chuns was humiliated, he would be furious. Trying his best to control his emotions, Yi-chun continued to recall. The Yi family's disciples started training their chi from the age of 10. Only those who reached Mortal Realm Stage 2 before the age of 12 would be chosen by the top 5 martial institutions of the Windy Nation to become their disciples. However, to become an outer disciple, one had to at least reach Mortal Realm Stage 4. Maybe it was because of the pressure, or maybe it was because he didn't want to embarrass his parents. But Yi-chun managed to reach Mortal Realm Stage 2 within 2 years, and then he reached Mortal Realm Stage 4. He barely crossed the threshold and became an outer disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School. However, compared to the other disciples of the Yi family, he was still far behind. His eldest uncle's son, Yi Feng, and his third uncle's son, Yi Ming, both reached mortal realm stage 4 at the age of 12. The most powerful ones were his second uncle's son, Yi Tang, and his fourth uncle's daughter, Yi Xian. Both of them reached mortal realm stage 5 at the age of 12. They were definitely the rare geniuses of the Yi family. According to the difference in talent, the martial institutions they entered were naturally different. Yi Chen's talent was the worst, so he entered the rank 9 Sky Cloud Martial School. Yi Feng and Yi Ming entered the rank 8 Purple Sun Martial School. Yi Tang entered the rank 7 North Snow Martial Academy. Yi Xian, who was as famous as him, also entered the rank 7 Emerald Martial School. There is only 1 year left until the Yi family's triennial family meeting. I can't lose face. Getting off the bed, Yi Chen washed up and went to the yard with his sword. The sword cloud art had 9 movements in total. The first 6 did not have names, and the last 3 were named gap-seeking, flowing clouds and water, and luminous movement. Closing his eyes, the sword cloud art's heart diagram appeared in his mind. Yi Chen stretched out his great steel sword and started to train from the first movement. Different from the past, when Yi Chen swung his sword, he did not feel any obstruction at all. It was like a river flowing when the channel is formed. Crack! A flying leaf was cut in half, but Yi Chen did not feel anything and continued to swing. The first movement, the second movement, the third movement, the 7th movement. Gradually, Yi Chen's sword attacks were freed from the restraints. Not only was his sword dancing speed extremely fast, but his movements were also light and agile. He was able to move freely without any restraints. Soon, he reached the 7th movement, finding the gap. All of a sudden, the sword light was like an agile mudfish, easily passing through a few different fallen leaves. Putting away his sword, Yi Chen was also a little surprised. For beginners, even the most basic martial arts were hard to learn. This was not only because of talent, but also because of the adaptability of new things. It was just like learning to swim. At the beginning, because of the fear of water, it was very difficult to learn. But once you got used to it, you would be able to do more difficult movements and even create your own movements. All in all, it was not hard to go from low to high, but it was hard to go from nothing to something. Taking a deep breath, Yi Chen emptied his mind and started to perform the sword cloud art. The first movement, the 7th movement. The first movement, the 7th movement. After performing the sword cloud art more than 10 times, Yi Chen finally understood the 8th movement, flowing clouds and water. Under the morning sun, the great steel sword reflected the white sword light. It was like the clouds in the sky or the water in the stream, endless. Correspondingly, the qi inside his body was also like the water. It slowly sped up, completing one small cycle after another, and finally returned to his dantian and then flowed out again, repeating the cycle. Whoosh! His dantian slightly swelled, and Yi Chen woke up with a start. Middle mortal realm stage 4? That's so easy. Yi Chen knew himself well. He knew that it would take at least a week to get from early mortal realm stage 4 to middle mortal realm stage 4, but he did it in just an hour. There must be something wrong with this abnormal situation. Yi Chen understood that there must be a reason for this change. Chapter 2. But no matter how he thought about it, Yi Chen could not think of any changes in his body. So, the only explanation was because of the soul fusion, which gave him an extraordinary comprehension ability that allowed him to easily reach the 8th movement of the flying cloud arts. As for how inner chi improved, it was very simple. As everyone knew, the mental cultivation method of inner strength was tranquil skill, while the martial arts technique was dynamic skill. Although the two had different forms, they both had the effect of training inner chi. However, in comparison, the mental cultivation method of inner strength was completely used to train inner chi, while the martial arts technique was mainly used to attack the target, and the training of inner chi was secondary. After understanding the whole story, Yi Chen could not help but feel his heart beating faster. There are two most important talents for a warrior. One was to be gifted and have a great body, and the other was to have a great comprehension ability that allowed them to learn things quickly. The former had a much higher level of qi training than normal people, like Yi Tang and Yi Xian, while the latter could easily master the martial art and beat the stronger ones. If you really wanted to compare, it all depended on the warrior himself. God is on my side. If I keep this speed, reaching the mortal realm stage 8 in 1 year will not be a dream anymore. The path of cultivation was extremely difficult. Talented people might be able to reach the 5th stage in 2 years, but in the following 2 years, they might not be able to reach the 8th stage. The time needed to reach the 9th stage and the 10th stage would double, and it was even more difficult to reach the condensing reality realm from the mortal realm. In the history of the Yi family, only the 3rd leader of the family had reached the condensing reality realm at the age of 15. Knowing that he would not need much time to master the 9th movement of the flying cloud arts, Yichen decided to go to the martial art pavilion to get some more suitable martial arts. After lunch, Yichen hurried to the martial art pavilion. The martial art pavilion was usually a commonplace. The real martial arts would never be kept here. Plus, as an outer disciple, Yichen could only see the martial arts below the mid-rank mortal realm. Looking up, all kinds of martial arts almost made Yichen dizzy. Flying sky sword art, wind sword art, crossing sword art, lone peak of 13 swords, cloud-breaking palm, limitless hand, air-breaking fist, King Kong fist, 7-star Mantis fist. There were 30 to 40 sword techniques alone, more than 50 palm and fist techniques each, 28 leg techniques, and only 8 finger techniques. The flying sky sword art had a very high requirement for Qin Gong. Every movement must be light and elegant. The clear breeze sword art was a bit more complicated and required a certain level of comprehension. The crisscrossing sword art was full of killing intent. It was brutal and overbearing. It was suitable for those cold-blooded disciples to train. The lone peak of 13 swords was even more powerful than the previous dozens of sword arts. All right, I'll choose the lone peak of 13 swords then. After thinking about it for a while, Yichen finally decided to train the lone peak of 13 swords. After all, his comprehension ability was extraordinary. Training normal sword arts would not be very meaningful and would be a waste of time. So it was either he didn't choose or he chose the best one. As for fist, palm, and finger techniques, Yichen had his own requirements. He liked fist techniques, so he chose the Vajra fist. Finger techniques were more complicated and difficult to practice, and he was afraid that it would delay the cultivation of sword techniques, so he temporarily gave up on it and ignored palm techniques. Holding the 2 manuals, Yichen went to the Pavilion Elder to register. The lone peak of 13 swords? The Pavilion Elder frowned and said, I know everyone wants to learn better martial arts, but don't be too ambitious. You have to take it step by step. This lone peak of 13 swords looks like a mid-rank Mortal Realm manual, but it is as hard as a high-rank Mortal Realm manual. A lot of outer disciples don't listen to my advice and end up with nothing, wasting a lot of time. Yichen knew that the elder meant well, so he said, Master, I know that the lone peak of 13 sword is hard to learn, but I have confidence. The Pavilion Elder shook his head. The outer disciples used to be full of confidence as well, but what good would that do? Never mind, I don't have the right to stop him from choosing. I just hope that he knows how difficult it is and doesn't waste his time. Thinking about this, the Pavilion Elder said, You know the rules of the Sky Cloud Martial School. Without the permission of the school, you are not allowed to teach martial arts without permission. Otherwise, you will lose your martial arts, and in serious cases, you will be beheaded. Also, you have to return the manual copy within 3 months. Don't worry, Master. I will not joke around with my life. Putting away the manuals, Yichen walked out of the Pavilion of Martial Arts. The outer disciples of the Sky Cloud Martial School were free to do whatever they wanted, except for the morning and evening meetings and the martial arts classes that were held once every 3 days. The next morning, Yichen took his great steel sword and walked deep into the mountains. The windy mountain was 3,800 meters high, and the top half of the mountain was covered in clouds all year round. It seemed to be isolated from the rest of the world. Other than some of the forbidden areas for the elders and core disciples to train, most of the open space in the forest could be used to train their own martial arts. After spending more than an hour, Yi Chun found a remote cliff. The cliff was about 10 meters wide, and 3 sides of it were covered in white fog. Sometimes it would turn into thousands of horses, sometimes it would turn into waves, and sometimes it would shrink and expand, changing constantly. Although a famous mountain in the 21st century is not bad, it is still lacking a little bit of magic. Only here can people forget everything else and focus on training their martial arts. Yi Chun sighed inwardly. In his opinion, it was not that easy to become a powerful warrior. One would have to be able to endure the loneliness and loneliness. Those people who claimed that they would be able to become powerful as long as they were given a great martial art were completely daydreaming. Taking a deep breath, Yi Chun began his boring and monotonous training. He circulated his chi, stepped, swung his sword, shook his hand. In only one day, Yi Chun could perform the 9th movement of the traveling cloud sword art, Nightlight movement. Once the sword was performed, the dark sword light was dazzling and difficult to adapt to. In terms of power, it had basically reached the level of a middle-rank mortal realm martial artist. It was definitely Yi Chun's most powerful attack of the moment. He came in the morning and went back at night. Before he knew it, another 3 days had passed. On top of the steep cliff, a man pointed his sword at the huge rock in front of him. The sword light was like the reflection of the moon in the water. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. The boulder was like a piece of tofu. Sword marks were left on it, and each mark was an inch deep. Finally completed, the exhaustion of his chi made Yi Chun sweat profusely, but he did not care at all. He looked at the sword marks on the huge rock with satisfaction, and a light smile appeared on his face. The 9th movement of the sky cloud sword art was several times more difficult than the previous 8 movements, but its power was also several times greater. It took Yi Chun 4 days to complete it. Apart from that, these 4 days of hard training had made the chi inside Yi Chun's body even purer, making it easier for him to control it. The next day, Yi Chun came to the cliff to train, as usual. But unlike before, Yi Chun was going to start training the extremely difficult Lone Peak of 13 Swords. The Lone Peak of 13 Swords had a total of 13 movements. The sword power was extremely dangerous, like a lonely mountain that was isolated from the rest of the world. It made people feel a chill down their spine, as if all of their hidden flaws were being seen through. Following the movements on the manual, Yi Chun had a rough idea of what it was like. He could vaguely feel that indescribable state of mind. Yi Chun believed that as long as he could complete the Lone Peak of 13 Swords, he would be able to kill people who were weaker than him in a second. But when facing people who were more powerful than him, he would still be able to find flaws, unless his opponent was extremely experienced and had gradually grasped the essence of returning to nature. Chapter 3. 3 months passed by quickly. Outside the cliff, the sea of clouds was still tumbling. On top of the cliff, the young man was wearing a uniform, holding a great steel sword. Maybe it was an illusion, or maybe it was because of the environment, but the young man's sword aura gave off the feeling that he was at the top of the world. He was obviously standing in front of you, but it felt like he was standing on a lonely mountain far away. That kind of distance made people want to vomit blood. After 12 consecutive sword strikes, the young man's eyes were like lightning, piercing through the void. His figure suddenly leaped up, as if he was pouncing down from the peak of a mountain. With a flash of sword light, a terrifying sword mark of 3 inches deep and 3 feet long was left on the opposite boulder. It was clean, efficient, and merciless. Putting the sword back into the scabbard, the young man mumbled to himself, "No wonder the pavilion master wanted me to choose another sword art. This Lone Peak of 13 Swords is not just a simple mid-rank mortal realm martial skill. It contains such a profound artistic conception that it is way beyond the original scope." The young man was Yi Chun. In the past 3 months, he had completed the training of the Lone Peak of 13 Swords with his super comprehension ability. But recently, he realized that the Lone Peak of 13 Swords was not as simple as it seemed. It seemed like it was still missing something. In other words, The Lone Peak of 13 Swords was just an incomplete manual. The real manual had probably been lost, which is why it had dropped to mid-rank Mortal Realm. Fortunately, the person who was training it was Yichun. After a lot of hard work, he not only learned the artistic conception that the Lone Peak of 13 Swords did not originally have, but also improved his chi circulation. He believed that he would be able to train his own Lone Peak of 13 Swords in no time. Also, because of the 3 months of training, Yichun's chi had reached the early Mortal Realm stage 6. His progress was really fast. It's time to return the manual. Thinking of the Sky Cloud Martial School's rules, Yichun did not dare to delay. On the way back, Yichun's ears twitched. He heard a feminine voice coming from afar. It was at least a mile away, but it was still very clear. It was as if the entire voice had been condensed together and exploded in an instant. Such powerful chi. How strong must one's body be to be able to release it? It sounded like a girl. Unable to contain his curiosity, Yichun carefully approached. After crossing a few thorny meadows, Yichun arrived behind a boulder. Poking his head out, he saw a small forest. Beside the small forest was a wooden hut, and in front of the wooden hut was a small pond. A few lotus leaves floated on the surface of the pond, giving off an artistic feeling. At the edge of the small forest, a young girl of about 16 years of age, dressed in snow-white attire, was practicing her fist technique while letting out a soul-stirring shout. Her figure was thin and frail, but each of her punches and kicks were domineering and had a sharp penetrative power. It's senior sister Su Jing. Is this a forbidden area? Seeing the other party, Yichun finally understood. In the Sky Cloud Martial School, except for the leader and the inner elders who had their own mountains, the rest of the people who wanted to practice martial arts had to find a suitable place. However, although the Windy Mountain was big, the best places to practice martial arts were also limited. Normally, the outer elders and core disciples would take the initiative to occupy a good place and make it a forbidden place. If a normal person tried to break in, they would be scolded, and if it was light, they would be scolded, and if it was heavy, they would be severely punished. In Yichun's eyes, senior sister Su was one of the core disciples of the Sky Cloud Martial School, ranked 23rd. She was at the mid-condensing reality realm and was extremely talented. Su Jing was using her footwork. Between her punches and kicks, she pressed her tongue against her teeth and channeled her chi into her abdomen. She kept yelling to increase the power of her fist technique. After throwing out a few punches, Su Jing's chi had reached its peak. She jumped into the air and attacked like lightning, like a tiger pouncing on its prey. Her fist landed on a huge tree that was as thick as a bucket. Bang! Bang! An astonishing scene occurred. Dazzling golden light burst forth from Su Jing's fist and palm, which then converged into a solid substance. She easily broke 3 trees that were connected in a row. Her momentum was terrifying. It was Zhen Qi release. Yichun squinted his eyes. When a Mortal Realm warrior transforms his chi into Zhen Qi, it means that he has officially stepped into the condensing reality realm. Not only would a condensing reality realm warrior's combat power increase, their Zhen Qi would also be able to leave their body and attack people from distance. Come out. Su Jing had already noticed Yichun's arrival. She stared at Yichun's position with sharp eyes. Yichun swallowed his saliva and obediently showed himself. You are an outer disciple. Yes. Why are you peeking at me? Your voice traveled too far. I was curious, so I came to have a look. Su Jing looked at Yichun carefully. His attitude was neither servile nor overbearing, which made her a little curious. If it were any other outer disciple, they would usually stammer in front of her, but Yichun's way of speaking was very logical and well-mannered, which made it hard for people to dislike him. Not planning to cause any trouble for Yichun, Su Jing said lightly, You can leave now. Don't come here again. Yes. Leaving the place, Yichun let out a breath. Although Su Jing's attitude was calm, she gave off an intimidating vibe. He was willing to bet that even if he ran into a core disciple who was ranked higher than her, he would not feel so pressured. It seemed like the core disciple ranking was going to change this year. Suddenly, Yichun smiled. If it was before, he probably would not be able to say a word in front of Su Jing. But now, he was able to answer calmly. It must be because of his strong soul. But what caught Yi Chen's attention the most was Su Jing's personality. She was indeed cold and unsociable. Normal people would not be able to get close to her. Plus her powerful martial arts. She left a deep impression on people. Arriving at the Pavilion of Martial Arts, the Pavilion Master looked up and recognized Yi Chen immediately. He said meaningfully, "How is it? You haven't mastered the lone peak of 13 swords yet, right? It's still not too late to choose another sword art." Yi Chen smiled lightly. "No need. I am here to return the manual." "Okay, please register here." After signing his name, Yi Chen turned around and was about to leave. Seeing this, the Pavilion Master asked curiously, "There are only 2 months left before the Mu Run Gang. Aren't you going to try harder?" The Mu Run Gang was a traditional trial in the Sky Cloud Martial School. It was open once every half a year. Most of the participants were outer disciples. If one could pass the trial, it meant that one's fighting ability was high. If not, then one would have to keep trying. Half a year ago, Yi Chen was beaten to the point of vomiting blood in 3 breaths and became a laughingstock. I think the lone peak of 13 swords should be enough for the trial. Yi Chen thought that he would be able to increase his chi to the late mortal realm stage 6 in 2 months. Even if he could not make into the top 10, he would not be too far behind. Of course, he had not experienced the trial yet, so he was not sure how strong he was. The Pavilion Master nodded subconsciously. Then he was shocked. "You mean you have mastered the lone peak of 13 swords? How is that possible?" More or less. If the Pavilion Master knew that he had not only mastered the lone peak of 13 swords, but also understood the artistic conception and a deeper level of chi cultivation, what would he think? Not wanting to reveal too much, Yi Chen walked out. Even after Yi Chen had left, the Pavilion Master still could not believe it. He knew that the lone peak of 13 swords was incomplete. This sword art was created by the 3rd headmaster of the Sky Cloud Martial School and was a top-rank mortal realm. But for some unknown reason, the original copy had been lost, and all that was left was an incomplete copy. Even so, the lone peak of 13 swords was still very hard to learn. After all, the foundation of the lone peak of 13 swords was already at the top-rank mortal realm. The outer disciples nowadays are too full of themselves. The Pavilion Master shook his head, obviously not believing what Yi Chen had said. Chapter 4. Back in the yard, Yi Chen was stimulated by Su Jing's powerful fist art and immediately wanted to learn the King Kong fist. However, after practicing a few times, he still felt that something was wrong. If I'm not wrong, senior sister Su Jing is training the top-rank mortal realm martial skill Monster Killer Fist, which is extremely powerful. Although my King Kong Fist is not as powerful as the Monster Killer Fist, it is the same kind of powerful fist art. It's just that when I watch her fight, it's really powerful, but I don't have that kind of feeling. What is going on? Standing in the middle of the yard, Yi Chen frowned and thought. In his mind, he kept replaying the scene of Su Jing practicing over and over again. That's right, Su Jing's shout could travel a mile. It was full of energy. That was because her body was strong. My comprehension was strong, but my body was still weak. In the end, I couldn't learn fierce fist techniques. Thinking about the key to the problem, Yi Chen let out a sigh of relief. He was not afraid of not being able to learn, but he was afraid of not being able to find the source. Now, the first thing Yi Chen needed to do was to get into the horse stance. Only when the horse stance was stable would he be able to use the powerful fist art. Otherwise, if he fought with someone, his lower body would be unstable, and that would be a big joke. The horse stance was to spread the feet slightly wider than the shoulders in a half-squat posture. Because the posture was like riding a horse, and it was as stable as a stake, it got the name. Squatting well in the horse stance could strengthen the kidneys and waist, strengthen the tendons, replenish the chi, regulate the spirit, and stabilize the lower body, improve the balance, and increase the body's reaction speed. The horse stance was one of the basic skills before practicing martial arts. As the saying goes, if you don't practice the fist art, it'll all be in vain. It meant that if you only learned the moves from the fist art manuals, and did not actually train the whole body's strength and endurance. It would only be for show. With his thighs and calves at an angle of 90 degrees, Yi-chun looked straight ahead, and as his breathing rose and fell, he quickly and rhythmically performed the horse stance. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. His fists were like cannonballs, and the sound of the wind was endless. Within a short while, he had already punched more than 300 times. About a quarter of an hour later, Yi-chun concentrated on his lower abdomen for a quarter of an hour, according to his memory. Then, he would do it again at night. However, the speed of his punches had to be gradually increased. He had to strive for a breakthrough every time without stopping. Half a month later, Yi-chun stopped practicing the horse stance straight punch and only practiced the 4-level horse stance. He stood there quietly for half an hour. When he realized that there was no difficulty at all, Yi-chun clenched his hands in a fist and bent his elbows in the double peaks piercing ear stance, which meant that the center of his fist was facing forward, the eye of his fist was facing his ear, and he pulled back as hard as he could. At the same time, he stood in the 4-level horse riding stance, bent his waist, and puffed out his chest. Once the 2 hours were up, he intended to guard his lower abdomen for a quarter of an hour. By the end of the month, Yi-chun's body had undergone a huge change. His strength was almost 1,000 pounds, and he could walk as if he was flying. His chi could travel along his back, and he was full of energy. The most obvious change was the increase in his appetite. For every meal, he could eat 3 big bowls of rice and a roasted chicken. He slept very soundly, and towards the end, his chi was full, and he could walk at will, as if he had endless energy. However, these were not the key points. Now, Yi-chun could truly achieve the state of heart and hand and heart, hand and heart. He could maintain his peak condition when fighting with others. One day, after Yi-chun finished the horse stance, he frowned and said, "My body's quality has improved, but my physical strength is still not enough. Senior sister Su Jing's strength is at least several times that of mine. When she uses the demon-vanquishing fist, it is even more indestructible and powerful." Looking around the yard, Yi-chun's eyes lit up, and he stared at a big stone in the corner. Lifting weights could undoubtedly increase one's arm strength, but could easily damage one's muscles, so it was not a wise choice. However, running with a stone in hand was different. With the change of center of gravity and the shift of pressure, it could easily train every bone and muscle in the body, and it could also train one's endurance. As soon as he thought about it, Yi-chun ran to the corner, exerted strength in his arms, and easily lifted the big stone. He turned around and ran out of the yard. The windy mountain had dozens of side peaks, covering an area of dozens of miles. Except for the area above the mountainside, which was filled with buildings, the rest of the area was desolate and uninhabited. Of course, at the foot of the mountain, there were many disciples of the Sky Cloud Martial School guarding the mountain, and no outsiders were allowed to enter. On the mountain road, there was a figure carrying a stone as if he was flying. Those who paid attention could see that there was no chi fluctuation in his body, which meant that he was not using chi at all and was purely relying on his physical strength to train. Look, isn't that Yi-chun? Yeah, what the hell is wrong with this kid? Why doesn't he focus on training his martial skills? There were 3,000 outer disciples and 500 inner disciples in the Sky Cloud Martial School. Most of them did not want to stay in their own yards, and like Yi-chun, they liked to train in remote places. There were also some who would find like-minded people to train with, and they could even spar with each other. Yi-chun did not look around and did not pay attention to these people's discussions. But some troubles could not be avoided. A human figure shot out horizontally, blocking in front of Yi-chun. It was a 14 or 15-year-old bulky teenager. Yi-chun stopped. "Wang Gang, what can I do for you?" The bulky teenager's name was Wang Gang. He was also an outer disciple like Yi-chun, but his cultivation was much higher than Yi-chun's. He had already reached the early mortal realm stage 7. He was good at martial arts and had great strength. The two had a conflict before, and more specifically, Yi-chun had been beaten up by him and had been bettered in for half a month. Wang Gang smirked. "Training like this won't work. Just like last time, I could beat you like a dead dog with only 30% of my power." Yi-chun sneered. He would have been fine if Wang Gang had not come to him, but now that he had come to him, he would not let it go. Half a year ago, he had accidentally talked back to Wang Gang, and he had been punched, breaking 2 of his ribs. Fortunately, the Yi family was not short of money, and they had a lot of healing medicines, which was why he was able to recover in half a month. Really? Then how do you think I should train? Yi Chun threw down the stone. All talk and no action. Let me teach you. Wang Gang's body suddenly rushed forward, appearing in front of Yi Chun in just a few steps. His palm, which was much bigger than a normal person's, chopped down like a steel plate, creating a loud sound. Looking at Wang Gang's powerful palm, Yi Chun did not try to dodge. Instead, he raised his left hand and used the King Kong Tower style to block. He had chosen to meet force with force. Boom! The sound of wood and stone hitting each other was heard. Yi Chun did not move an inch, but Wang Gang's lower body was a bit shaken, leaving him wide open. How was this possible? His chi is obviously not as good as mine. How could he block my breaking monument palm? What the hell? Wang Gang immediately felt that something was wrong. He did not care about his own weakness. He changed his right fist into a palm and chopped out. However, Yi Chun had the foresight. Before his opponent could launch the second attack, his right fist had already landed on Wang Gang's chest with an aggressive aura. King Kong Fist 5th movement, King Kong Smash. With a cracking sound, Wang Gang spat out a mouthful of blood. Both of his feet left the ground and flew backwards. He rolled a few times on the ground before stopping. His whole body was dispirited. This time, everyone was shocked. Wang Gang, who had always been known for his ferocity, had actually lost to Yi Chun in a direct confrontation, and in such a miserable way, it was like a dead dog. Only Yi Chun knew what had happened. Wang Gang's strength and chi were both higher than his, but in a real battle, Wang Gang's weakness of not being proficient in martial arts was immediately exposed. For example, that vertical chop just now, it was indeed powerful, but Yi Chun did not take it head-on. Instead, he chose to press down, first consuming part of Wang Gang's strength, and then he used all his strength to rebound, making Wang Gang's lower body unstable. As for taking it head-on, that was just an illusion because he was too fast. It could not be taken seriously. Chapter 5. Looks like your training method is wrong. I'm sorry, I won't keep you company. Lifting the stone, Yi Chun continued to run. After Yi Chun left, the crowd's voices grew louder. I can't believe it. Yi Chun won. He used the King Kong Fist. The King Kong Fist and the Breaking Stone Palm are both mid-rank mortal realm martial skills. They should be equally powerful. Plus, Wang Gang's cultivation is higher than Yi Chun's. What is going on? The reason is simple. The calm-looking teenager thought for a while and said, Yi Chun's King Kong Fist has already reached a very high level. There is softness in the hardness. Someone asked, how did you know? The calm teenager smiled lightly. The headmaster once said, softness and the hardness is the way to go. The punch that Yi Chun used to stop Wang Gang seemed to be very powerful, but it actually contained a rebound technique. Of course, I only realized it after careful analysis. The mountain road was rough and bumpy. Drenched in sweat, Yi Chun ran around the mountain for dozens of miles before he reached a wide river. Boom! Throwing the stone on the ground, Yi Chun took off his outer clothes and jumped into the river. Training at the bottom of the river was 10 times more difficult than training on land. The huge water pressure was pressing on from all directions, making people feel scared. Concentrating his chi in his dantian, Yi Chun stood steadily on the river bottom that was full of stones and mud. He casually swung his fist, and the undercurrent surged, but his strength was only 30% of his normal strength. But this was exactly what Yi Chun wanted. Otherwise, there would be no need to train at the bottom of the river. The river water quickly became turbid, rolling and swirling as if a huge water monster was hiding in the depths, stirring up trouble and wanting to come out. In this harsh environment, Yi Chun could feel that all of his bones and muscles were trying their best to fight against the muddy current. Gradually, they combined into one, increasing the efficiency. After a long time, Yi Chun could no longer hold his breath, and finally jumped out of the water. Huff! 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 Yi Chun breathed heavily and laughed. Training at the bottom of the river is so efficient. I wonder how many people know about this method. Cool Breeze Town was less than 10 miles away from Cool Breeze Mountain. Second floor of Lucky Fortune Restaurant. Yi Chun, whose stomach was already rumbling with hunger, couldn't care less about his image. He devoured the table full of fine wine and delicacies like a tornado. It turned out that Yi Chun would come to the windy town to have a meal every few days. After all, he was just an outer disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School, so the food he ate was cooked in huge pots. Although it was not delicious, it was still nutritious. Although the windy town was not big, it still had some precious dishes. Moreover, Yi Chun also liked to listen to the rumors of the Jianghu people, so that he could be prepared to travel to Jianghu in the future. On the second floor, besides Yi Chun, there were also some people from the Jianghu. All of them were armed with swords and sabers, and they looked spirited. Have you heard? Quick Blade Wu Wanshan was defeated by a young bladesman. I also heard about it. That young bladesman seems to be called Lynch. He is the third disciple of the Northern Snow Manor. His saber moves are very sharp. He defeated Wu Wanshan within 10 moves. Are you kidding me? Wu Wanshan has already reached the early clasping Yuan realm. He is very powerful. How could he be defeated by him? Third brother, you are too ignorant. This news has been spread all over the world. How could it be fake? But that Lin Shi had beaten Wu Wanshan, who was at the early clasping Yuan realm. When he was only at the late condensing reality realm, he was indeed powerful. I wonder how he compares to the head disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School. Yi Chun's expression changed. He recalled the stories of Wu Wanshan and Lynch. Wu Wanshan, who did not belong to any sect, was in his 30s and was said to have created his own swift blade technique, which could divide a drop of water into 5 parts in a split second. He once single-handedly killed more than 40 brave and skillful mounted gangsters and cut a single plank bridge in half from a distance of 10 feet. He was named one of the swift blade techniques. Lynch, the third disciple of the Northern Snow Manor. He started cultivating Qi at the age of 9, reached the condensing reality realm at the age of 13, reached the mid-condensing reality realm at the age of 15, and reached the peak of the late condensing reality realm at the age of 17. He was almost as powerful as the head disciple of the North Snow Martial School. Both of them were unreachable to Yi Chun right now, but Yi Chun did not think that Lin Shi had the power to beat the head senior sister. He had heard from the teaching elder that the head senior sister's talent in martial skills was no less than some of the inner elders. No matter what kind of martial skill she practiced, she could master it to perfection. She was a rare genius in the Sky Cloud Martial School. I wonder how long it will take me to reach this level. Yi Chun did not doubt his potential. His only weakness was that he started late. Suddenly, a Jianghu man said, "Who do you think has the potential to compete with the top disciples of the other 4 martial institutions in the future?" Without a doubt, the head disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School, Hidden Fragrant Sword, is at the same level as the North Snow Martial School. As for the others, I think Jingju, who is ranked 4th among the core disciples. He is ruthless and has a lot of fighting experience. Jingju is not bad, but I think Tao Xiaofeng, who is ranked 3rd among the core disciples, is very powerful. He always wins against stronger opponents. The person who brought up the topic chuckled. You were talking about the top 5 core disciples. If it was in the past, I would have thought so too. But this time it's different. I think highly of Su Jing, who is ranked 23rd among the core disciples. Why do you say so? The others looked curious. Yi Chun was also paying attention. He did not expect that someone would mention Sister Su Jing. 3 days ago, I saw her once. At that time, she was fighting with the Iron Destroying Hand. This person hadn't even finished speaking when everyone started to discuss spiritedly. Iron Destroying Hand Li Tong. This person isn't an ordinary person. He's treacherous, cunning, and incomparably ruthless. He's been chased for half a year, yet he's still safe and sound. It's said that his unique skill, Iron Destroying Hand, is passed down from the Ritter Nation. It's truly able to destroy gold and break iron. Wrong. In a head-on fight, Su Jing had been suppressing Li Tong the whole time. Li Tong's arms were broken, and he vomited blood and died. What? Li Tong is at the peak of the late condensing reality realm, but he was being suppressed? What's so strange about that? If you saw the scene, you would know how powerful Su Jing's fist art was. Compared to her, Li Tong seemed to be very weak in terms of aura and fighting style. Yichen smiled lightly. He knew how powerful Su Jing was. Normally, there were 3 extremely high realms for powerful martial arts. The first realm was the combination of hardness and softness. The second realm was the combination of hardness and softness. And the highest realm was the combination of hardness and softness. Su Jing had already trained the demon-killing fist art to the second realm. Yichen himself had only trained the King Kong fist art for a short time, but he had also reached the second realm. He had only used 70 to 80% of his power when fighting against Wang Gang. Of course, these 3 realms were not that easy to reach. Those who were not talented could not even reach the first realm after spending years or even decades. For example, Wang Gang had not even mastered the breaking monument palm, not to mention the combination of hardness and softness. Chapter 6. In the blink of an eye, another half a month had passed, and there was only 1 week left until the Mu Run Gang Challenge. During this time, Yi Chun practiced the horse stance for 2 hours every morning and night, and spent the rest of his time training his physical strength and martial arts. Right now, he could already lift a 300-pound rock with one arm, and with both arms, he could easily lift a 1,000-pound rock above his head. Besides the improvement of his physical strength, Yi Chun found that he had enough physical strength, and his sword arts were much easier to perform. His speed and control had increased drastically, and he could easily split 7 to 8 falling leaves with a casual swing of his sword, pierce through a waist-thick tree, and leave a 4-inch deep mark on a huge rock. It's time to train my combat skills. Yi Chun felt that he had reached his limit, and there was no way he could improve even if he kept training. If he had the time, he might as well use it to increase his combat experience and improve his fighting skills. That way, he would be able to bring out his full potential. However, it was not that easy to train in a real battle. He was still an outer disciple, and he could not leave the mountain to wander around the world, so there was no need to talk about life and death battles. Although the inner disciples were only 1 level higher than him, if they were to fight in a real battle, even if you were at the same level as them, you would still lose within 2 or 3 attacks. This was the difference between fighting and not. Fortunately, it was not necessary to fight with humans to achieve the effect of a real battle. There are demonic beasts in this world, and they could train either actively or passively. When the demonic chi inside their body reached a certain level, they would mutate and evolve. For countless years, the ancient people had divided the demonic beasts into different levels. Rank 1 and 2 demonic beasts were equivalent to mortal realm warriors. Rank 3 and Rank 4 demonic beasts were equivalent to condensing reality realm warriors, and Rank 5 and Rank 6 demonic beasts were equivalent to clasping Yuan realm warriors. Demonic beasts above Rank 6 were very rare and could only be found deep in the mountains. Fighting with demonic beasts was not any worse than fighting with humans. On the contrary, demonic beasts were usually more aggressive than humans. If a ferocious beast that had killed countless animals and humans appeared in front of you, you would only be able to use half of its power with just one look. Therefore, Yi Chun decided to go to the Silent Hills to train. There were often low-rank demonic beasts there. Wearing the great steel sword on his left waist, Yi Chun tidied up his clothes and walked out of the yard. On the way down the mountain, Yi Chun sighed in his heart as he watched the outer and inner disciples coming and going. No matter who it was, if they wanted to live a better life, they needed money. His family had millions of assets, so he shouldn't be poor. Unfortunately, that was not the case. For example, the Yi family had a total of thousands of people. 600 to 700 of them were businessmen, helping the family to manage the business. The remaining 400 to 500 people focused on practicing martial arts and didn't make any money at all. However, if they wanted to protect their own assets, they had to have a strong martial force. This martial force also needed money to support it, and it would accumulate to an astonishing amount in a year. That was why even his father, the head of the Yi family, only had a few 100,000 taels of silver. As his son, his monthly allowance was 100 taels of silver. If there were other necessary expenses, he could claim them. What could he do with 100 taels of silver a month? The only thing he could do was eat well and dress well. There wasn't much of a difference in other areas. Using expensive medicine to train his body was not something he could enjoy. Only the core disciples of the family or the martial school could afford it. Going down the mountain, Yi-Chun found the right direction and sped up his pace. In the afternoon, Yi-Chun arrived at the outer area of the Silent Hills. Some rank 1 demonic beasts started to appear. This kind of dangerous place, normal mortal realm warriors wouldn't dare to enter. Even Yi-Chun became more cautious. His hand was always on the hilt of his sword, ready to attack if there was any danger. Along the way, Yi-Chun didn't meet any high-ranked demonic beasts. Occasionally, a top-ranked 2 demonic beast appeared, but it was only a red smelting bird, and it was badly injured. If it wasn't for the fact that he was flying in the sky, Yi-Chun wouldn't mind fighting with it. After walking for a while and killing a few demonic beasts, Yi-Chun suddenly stopped and injected his chi into his ears. There's the sound of fighting. The biggest difference between a warrior and a normal person was the use of chi. A normal person's 5 senses had a limit, but a warrior could use chi to enhance their 5 senses. Right now, with his chi, Yi-Chun could hear loud noises from a mile away, and he could also identify the source of the noises. Following the sound, Yi-Chun quietly rushed over. In front of him was a dense forest, and he could vaguely see human figures moving about. Other than that, there was also a huge shadow and the roar of a beast. When he was 30 steps away from the battlefield, Yi-Chun took a deep breath and jumped onto a big tree, where he could see everything clearly from above. In the middle of the forest, there was an open space with a radius of 50 feet. Right now, it was occupied by 4 or 5 teenagers with weapons in their hands, attacking a huge demonic beast. The demonic beast was 10 feet long, shaped like a fierce tiger, with shiny black fur, a long red tongue dripping with purple liquid, and a mouth full of sawtooth teeth. Its claws were 3 feet long, sharp and curved. It was a top-ranked 2 demonic beast, poisonous sawtooth beast. It was as powerful as a mortal realm stage 10 warrior. Its body carried a deadly poison that would cause the skin of the victim to ulcerate. The victim would need an antidote. Otherwise, once the poison reached the heart, even a condensing reality realm warrior would not be able to save them. After observing for a while, Yi-Chun noticed the golden rings on their sleeves, and the name of an unranked martial school popped up in his mind. The Golden Light Martial School, a martial school close to the Sky Cloud Martial School. The leader of the school, Liu, was a mid-clasping Yuan realm martial artist and was an expert in the golden rings. He used to be an outer disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School and later traveled to other countries besides the Windy Nation. When he came back, he founded the Golden Light Martial School and now had 500 disciples. The 5 people attacking the poisonous sawtooth beast were not very powerful, but their teamwork was quite good. It seemed like they had been working together for a long time. A few sword lights landed on the poisonous sawtooth beast. The one who attacked was a young girl in a red dress. She was wielding a thin sword, and she seemed to be at the mortal realm stage 5. Beside her were 2 twin brothers who wielded blades. They were tall and muscular, and they would yell at the beast from time to suppress it, using their physical strength to stop it from moving forward. Although the 3 of them were working hard, they were not the main force, but the other 2. One of them was a young man in a black dress. His weapon was the Azure Dragon Halberd, which was 2 meters long and looked quite heavy. Every time the poisonous sawtooth beast was about to threaten the others, it would be pushed back by him, and he would take the opportunity to leave a bloody mark on his opponent's body. The one that caught Yi-Chun's attention the most was the young man in blue. He was about 17 or 18 years old, and he had a flute on his waist. He was the most powerful one without a weapon. Every time he threw out a palm strike, it would bring up a sharp black wind, which pushed the poisonous sawtooth beast back. If Yi-Chun's guess was right, the young man in blue was a mortal realm stage 9 warrior, and he was already able to mix his chi into the wind generated by his palm, and attack people from distance. But of course, the power was much weaker than Zhen Qi. Otherwise, the poisonous sawtooth beast would have been killed already. Beasts had always been powerful, but they would eventually run out of energy. Right now, the wounded poisonous sawtooth beast was exhausted. The poisonous smoke that it tried to breathe out was pushed away by the young man in blue's palm strike. It turned around and tried to run away. "Where do you think you're going?" The young man in blue's eyes were like lightning, and his palm strike landed on the back of the poisonous sawtooth beast. Roar! The poisonous sawtooth beast let out a cry, and its huge body flew out like a broken sack, its internal organs all shattered. Brother Lu is so powerful. The girl in red wiped her sweat as she put her sword back into its scabbard. She turned around and looked at the young man in blue with admiration. The young man in blue said gently, "What's so powerful about me? You guys will catch up in a few years." The young man in black with the azure dragon halberd said, "I am now at the peak of mortal realm stage 7. I will be able to catch up to you in a few months." That's true. The young man in blue did not seem to care. The girl in red curled her lips as if she did not like the young man in black's arrogance. Chapter 7. The twins surrounded the beast's body and laughed. "We've struck it rich this time. There's a poison pellet inside this beast's body." Poison pellet? The blue-clothed man and the black-clothed man's expression changed. The younger twin nodded. "It is indeed a poison pellet. It looks like it has only been formed for a few months. It's only the size of a walnut." A rank 2 beast was worth less than 1,000 silvers. 5 people would only get 200 silvers. However, a pellet inside a beast's body was different. Even a freshly formed pellet could be sold for 1,000 silvers in the market. A walnut-sized pellet could be sold for 2,000 silvers. Poison pellets were a type of pellet. They could be used as medicine or for training poison arts. The girl in red wanted to touch the black pellet, but the blue-clothed man immediately stopped her. "Sister Yao, don't touch it. This pellet contains all the poison in the beast's body. It can even corrode iron. It's extremely dangerous." "That powerful?" The girl in red stuck out her tongue. The blue-clothed man took out a jade box and said, "It's not good to use a wooden or iron box. Only a jade box can keep the poison out." Then he channeled his chi into his left hand and grabbed the black pellet. He carefully put it into the jade box. On the other side, the twins were already collecting the materials from the beast's body. Finally, they put them all into a golden silk bag. After everything was done, the twin brother frowned. "Brother Lu, it took us half a day to kill one beast. There were more than 3 of them in the cave. One of them was especially big." The girl in red suggested, "How about we go back and ask for help? But what if someone else gets it first?" The black-clothed man rolled his eyes. "No way. The Silent Hills is at least 1,000 miles wide. The terrain is strange and complicated. There are not many people here." The blue-clothed man shook his head. "Haven't you noticed? That poison heart plant is about to mature." "What do you mean?" The girl in red didn't understand. The black-clothed man was dazed and said, "Once the poison heart plant matures, those beasts will eat it." The blue-clothed man seemed to have made up his mind. He said in a low voice, "We can deal with normal beasts, but the biggest one is not something we can deal with. So let's give up. Otherwise, the possibility of dying is very high." Hearing this, everyone fell silent. Just like what the blue-robed young man had said, a stalk of poison heartgrass was not worth it for them to risk their lives. "How about including me?" A clear voice sounded. "Who is it?" The black-clothed youth's eyes were filled with killing intent as he gripped the azure dragon halberd tightly. Yichin walked over step by step and said, "Don't be nervous. I just passed by here." The black-clothed youth sneered. "Just passed by? You heard everything we said. Don't be rash." The blue-clothed youth gave the black-clothed youth a look before taking a step forward and blocking the 3 of them behind him. He asked, "Who are you? I don't think we've met before." Yichun cupped his hands and said, "I am an outer disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School." "Yichun, I heard the sound of fighting, so I rushed over to take a look. I don't mean to offend you." "I see." The young man in blue did not suspect anything. Poisonous sawtooth beasts were extremely ferocious, so it was normal for the sound of their battle to be heard. Not to mention, the other party was a disciple of the Sky Cloud Martial School, so it was not a good idea to offend them. The black-clothed youth looked at Yi Chen carefully and said sarcastically, "You are only at Mortal Realm Stage 6. What can you do to help us?" Yi Chen glanced at the black-clothed youth and said to the blue-clothed youth, "If I'm not wrong, the bigger one is as powerful as an early condensing reality realm warrior. It is indeed hard to deal with, but I have a way to make it lose some of its mobility." "What way?" the girl in red asked curiously. Yi Chen knew that he wouldn't be able to convince everyone if he didn't show some of his skills, so he pulled out his great steel sword. The people in front of him saw him pull out his sword and immediately held onto their weapons, in case he suddenly attacked. Walking in front of a huge tree, Yi Chen took a deep breath, then abruptly stabbed out with his sword. Swoosh! The tree, which needed 2 people to wrap their arms around, was pierced through like a piece of tofu without any resistance. The blue-clothed youth was shocked. He said in a low voice, condensing the sword light at one point, such a powerful sword skill. It was normal for a mortal realm warrior to release sword light, but to gather all the sword light at the tip of the sword was extremely difficult. Even with the blue rogue young man's cultivation, he could not do it. Now that he saw Yi Chen was able to do it, he couldn't help but admire him. He thought to himself, no wonder he is a Sky Cloud Martial School disciple. Yi Chen turned around and said, "The poisonous sawtooth beast is very fast, and its defense is not low. But as long as one of its legs is broken, everything will be fine." The black-clothed youth was very competitive. He sneered, "It's easy to say, but the poisonous sawtooth beast is not a tree that will just stand there and let you hit it." Yi Chen didn't argue. He swung his great steel sword a few times. Swoosh! The sword was back in its scabbard. Just as the black-clothed youth was about to mock Yi Chen again, the leaves above Yi Chen's body suddenly split into 2, then into 4. The cuts were perfectly straight. Suddenly, everyone gasped. To be able to do this without using their eyes, even the outer elders of the Golden Light Martial School would not be able to do this. The blue-clothed youth took a deep breath. He smiled and said, "I am Lu Tao, an inner disciple of the Golden Light Martial School. This is Wang Haichuan. These 2 are Yang Wen and Yang Wu, and this is Yao Qing, Sister Yao." Lu Tao pointed at the 4 of them and introduced them one by one. It was obvious that he recognized Yi Chen. Yi Chen cupped his hands and said, "It's my honor to meet you all." Yao Qing giggled. "Are all the disciples of the Sky Cloud Martial School this powerful?" Wang Haichuan said in a low voice, "How is that possible?" There was a hill hidden in the forest. It was only 10 meters tall, but it was more than a mile wide. "Brother Yi, we will see the cave in 100 steps. If I am not mistaken, there should be 2 poisonous sawtooth beasts guarding outside, and 1 big one inside." The few of them had practiced Qigong, so they walked silently like a group of ghosts. Yi Chen nodded and said in a low voice, "Brother Lu, you should have a way to lure one out, right?" Lu Tao smiled lightly. "The poisonous sawtooth beasts like to eat poisonous plants. I have 5 matured poisonous scorpion plants here. Although they are not as good as the poisonous heart plant, they are still effective." Previously, they had used the poisonous scorpion plants to lure out one of the poisonous sawtooth beasts. Soon, Yi Chen and the others saw the dark cave and the 2 poisonous sawtooth beasts 10 meters away from each other. They immediately held their breath. Under everyone's gaze, Lu Tao took out a long jade box from his pocket and opened it. Inside were 5 purple plants with 9 leaves and a slightly fishy smell. It was the poisonous scorpion plant. Holding the poisonous scorpion plant in his hand, Lu Tao explained, "The smell of the poisonous scorpion plant spreads very quickly. Once one of the poisonous sawtooth beast smells it, we have to move away immediately. Otherwise, it will be bad if the other poisonous sawtooth beasts surround us." After 3 breaths, the poisonous sawtooth beast that was close to them raised its head. "It's here." Yao Qing looked excited. It was like a game. When the poisonous sawtooth beast took 10 steps, the group moved back 30 steps. When the poisonous sawtooth beast took 30 steps, the group moved back 100 steps. Chapter 8. Looking at the dead body of the beast on the ground, Lu Tao took a deep breath. Only one left. I hope everything goes well. Yichen said lightly, it will go well. In the battle just now, Yao Qing didn't do much because Yichen's sword was way too fast. Right now, she was full of hope. How did you train your sword art? Can you teach me? Lu Tao frowned. Sister Yao was being too reckless. He hurried to say, Sister Yao, don't mess around. How can you teach me sword art so easily? The rules of the true spirit continent were very strict. Even a master would not teach his disciple everything he knew, not to mention that the two sides were not related at all. Unexpectedly, Yichen said, there is nothing to teach, but you can practice the basic sword art 100 times a day, and you will see the results in a month. Really? Yao Qing didn't believe him. Yichen smiled, but didn't explain. The beast in the cave was shockingly huge. Its head alone was the size of a water tank. Its huge eyes were shining with a bloody red light. It looked very cruel. Let's go together. Lu Tao took the lead. He threw out 4 palm attacks towards the beast. What followed closely behind was a snow-white saber gleam, dense and fine sword gleam, and twisted saber gleam. The saw-toothed, poisonous beast, which had already been pushed back by Lu Tao, howled as it retreated again and again. In its rage, it opened its mouth and spat out a ball of purple, poisonous smoke. Lu Tao was shocked. He immediately gathered all the inner qi in his body, and a black arc of light appeared between his hands. All the purple, poisonous smoke exploded the moment it came into contact with the arc of light. The shock forced him to retreat again, and his arms were numb. The others didn't dare to stay where they were, and they fled in panic. Right at that moment, Yichen moved, his body flew out, his great steel sword pierced through the beast's open mouth. He flicked it upwards, and the tip of the sword came out, as if it was cutting through tofu. The beast struggled for a while, then its head tilted to the side, it died. It's dead? When Lu Tao saw that Yichen didn't act according to the plan, he thought that he had forgotten. He didn't expect that Yichen would kill the poisonous sawtooth beast with a single strike. Shaking off the liquid on his sword, Yichen slowly sheathed his sword and said, the poisonous sawtooth beast's poisonous smoke will pause for a blink of an eye. Above its mouth, there's a hole the size of a cup. That is its biggest weakness, and it goes straight to the brain. The younger twin brother, Yang Wu, said in admiration, amazing, you managed to find its fatal weakness after killing 2 poisonous sawtooth beasts. Yichen said, finding a weakness is something a swordsman must master. No matter what, the demonic sawtooth beast has been dealt with. Yao Qing laughed. The cave was not deep, only 7 or 8 feet. Lighting the match, Lu Tao gasped, it's not the poison heart grass, but the spider king grass. What? Spider king grass? Senior brother Lu, are you seeing things? Yang Wen exclaimed from behind. Lu Tao confirmed. The poison heart grass is purple and looks like an orchid, while the spider king grass is black, and the top leaves look like poisonous spiders. There is no way I'm seeing things. Hearing this, even the usually calm, Yichen couldn't help but breathe faster. Although the poison heart grass was precious, it was only worth 2,000 or 3,000 silvers and was very useful for those who practice poison arts. In comparison, the spider king grass could only be described as rare. Not only could it be used as medicine, but it could also be used in the practice of poison arts. What was even more precious was that there was an insidious martial art called 1,000 Poisonous Hands of 1,000 Spiders, which required the spider king grass in order to master. If those who practiced 1,000 Poisonous Hands of 1,000 Spiders found out that they had the spider king grass in their hands, not to mention 10,000 silvers, they would not hesitate to pay even more. Of course, the possibility of them killing and robbing them was very high. Yao Qing suddenly said, Senior brother Lu, it's too dark here. I can't see anything. That's true, let's go out. Lu Tao carefully dug out the spider king grass and walked out of the cave. In the bright environment, the appearance of the spider king grass was clearly revealed to everyone for the first time. The grass was 7 inches tall and had 7 leaves. Its entire body was ink black, and one could faintly see a flowing light flickering on it. At the top of the spider king grass, there was a fruit that looked like a black spider lying there. At first glance, it was hard to tell whether it was alive or not, and it was extremely creepy. This is the Spider King grass. It looks so scary. Yang Wen and Yang Wu smacked their lips. Lu Tao recalled, when I joined the Golden Light sect, I was lucky enough to see the head elder obtain a Spider King grass. It looked exactly like this one. I didn't think I would get one today. Wang Haichuan stared at the Spider King grass and licked his lips. One Spider King grass can be sold for at least 10,000 silvers, 666 silvers. I can't even make that much in half a year. Hearing Wang Haichuan's words, Lu Tao remembered to split the money equally. He said to Yi Chun, Brother Yi, you and I are from different sects. It's inconvenient to contact each other, and the Spider King grass and Spider King grass will take a while to sell. How about I give you the money directly? Yi Chun wasn't interested in the Spider King grass, so he agreed. All right, 2 normal poisonous sawtooth beasts are worth around 2,000 silvers. One elite poisonous sawtooth beast is worth 1,500 silvers, plus 10,000 silvers for the Spider King grass. It's a total of 13,500 silvers. Divided equally between 6 people is 2,250 silvers, or 225 silvers of gold. Here is a 100 silvers and a 10 silvers note. I'll give it to you first. Junior brother Wang, junior brother Yang, and junior sister Yao. Gather the money and give it to brother Yi. The few of them gathered the money, but they were still short of 50 silvers, so they could only use the materials from the poisonous sawtooth beasts as a substitute. Putting away the gold note and the materials, Yi Chen's ears twitched. He said in a low voice, There's someone. Putting away the jade box with the Spider King grass, Lu Tao shouted loudly, I am Lu Tao, a disciple of the Golden Light Martial School. Please show yourself. Ha! The Golden Light Martial School. Is it that small martial school? The grass rustled, and a group of big men walked out of the forest. The leader of the group was ugly. His head had been cut in half, leaving only 2/3 of it, looking very scary. Bullshit. Wang Haichuan was furious. The ugly man glared at Lu Tao, his eyes filled with murderous intent. Lu Tao knew that these people didn't come with good intentions. This group of people was most likely a group of outlaws. His face suddenly turned ugly. What do you want? Haha. Recently I've been a bit short on money. If you're willing to give me some, that would be great. Lu Tao frowned. We don't have much money on us, but we can give you the beast materials. They should be worth a few thousand silvers. He couldn't see through the opponent's chi level, but if he was not mistaken, they were at least at Mortal Realm Stage 10. If a fight broke out, besides him, the rest of his disciples would be in danger. Even Yi Chun would be the same. The ugly man yelled, Do you think we are beggars, trying to fool us with a few thousand silvers? Now I'll give you a choice. Leave the Spider King grass and leave immediately. All right, that little girl can't leave. Let me vent my anger. As soon as he said this, the big men started laughing. Yao Qing's face turned pale. She bit her lips. Lu Tao's face darkened. He suppressed his anger and said, You must be joking. Who is joking with you? I'll count to 10. If you don't behave, don't blame me for being cruel. The ugly man reached out his hand and grabbed the blade on his back. Chapter 9. Wang Haichuan's face turned red. If you want to fight, then fight. The ugly man sneered. It's not that I'm looking down on you, but if we really fight, none of you will be able to escape. Of course, we still have a chance, 1-2. Lu Tao stopped smiling and said coldly, Sir, do you really want to fight with us? 5, 6, 7. The ugly man did not answer. He just stared at them as if they were dead men. Yi Chun and Lu Tao looked at each other. The meaning in their eyes was clear. 9. Kill them. As soon as he finished speaking, the ugly man pulled out his sword, jumped into the air, and started to attack. Most people thought that they would count to 10 before attacking, but in fact this was their tactic. They had used it many times, and they could easily catch their opponents off guard. The ugly man's name was Ma Wu, and he was a Jianghu thug who had fled from another city. He used to work as a guard for a small family named Wang. Later, he coveted the beauty of the young lady of the Wang family, so he decided to go all out and humiliate her in the middle of the night. His ruthless methods made people's hair stand on end. Lu Tao, Wang Haichuan, and the others were all shocked, but only Yi Chun was prepared for it. It was not because he had a lot of experience in the martial world, but because of his powerful soul power, he was able to see through Ma Wu's subtle movements. Pushing his chi to the limit, Yi Chun tilted his body and swung his sword horizontally, using the 8th movement of the cloud walking sword art, flowing clouds and water. Ma Wu was stunned. He thought that Yi Chun was prepared, but he did not expect that he would meet a trap, and in the end he was caught off guard. In a flash, Ma Wu tilted his sword and brushed past Yi Feng's great steel sword. Clang! Poochie! Sparks flew everywhere, and a sword mark appeared on Ma Wu's waist. Blood flowed out from the wound. It was a superficial wound. No one could believe their eyes. A Mortal Realm Stage 6 warrior had injured a Mortal Realm Stage 10 warrior with just one sword attack. What the hell? Little did he know that Yi Chun was also feeling sorry for Magwu. If Magwu's reaction had been a bit slower, he would have been able to inflict a serious injury on Magwu. If Magwu had been a bit weaker, the blade would not have been able to deflect Yi Chun's attack, and the wound would have been an inch deeper. This was the power of the flying cloud swordsmanship. I really can't underestimate a Mortal Stage 10 martial artist. Yi Chun's second attack came after the first one failed. It was the 9th form of the flying cloud sword technique, Luminous Shift. All of a sudden, the sword light that was as dark as water diffused out. It was as if the air was no longer air, but a deep and unfathomable pool of water in the middle of the night. Damn it! Why is this kid's sword art at such a high level? Ma Wu's scalp went numb, and a ruthless glint flashed in his eyes. His broadsword slashed towards the center of the sword light like a bolt of lightning, and he strived to destroy the opponent's sword momentum. Otherwise, the situation would not be good for him. Huh! Ma Wu's full-powered attack missed, and he was shocked. He kicked the ground with both of his feet and hurriedly stepped back. Yi Chun seemed to have expected this, and he dashed out like an arrow. The sword in his hand changed its direction, and with a beautiful arc, it was the dangerous lone peak of 13 swords. A fierce light flashed in Ma Wu's eyes. He slapped the sword with his left hand that was filled with chi and yelled, "Damn little bastard, die." Boom! A Mortal Realm Stage 10 martial artist was not that easy to kill. A strong chi flow exploded like a hurricane, and it easily blew away Yi Chun's body. However, Yi Chun seemed to have lost his weight. He lightly touched the ground, and his aura suddenly changed. Like a collapsing mountain, he once again dashed towards Ma Wu, and the beautiful sword light pierced through his body. Swoosh! The tip of the sword pierced through Ma Wu's neck and came out from the back of his head. A warrior who was about to reach the condensing reality realm was killed by Yi Chun with only one sword attack, and it was as easy as drinking tea or eating a meal. It also made Yi Chun realize how powerful his own fighting power was, and most importantly, how powerful the lone peak of 13 swords was. Pulling out the sword and shaking off the blood, Yi Chun tried to get rid of all the distracting thoughts after killing someone. He looked around and found that the others had also started fighting. 7 or 8 ferocious-looking men were surrounding Lu Tao and the other 4, and the sound of their weapons clashing was like beans being fried. Get the hell out of here! Lu Tao had the highest cultivation. He threw out a series of attacks with both of his palms and instantly pushed back a few people. However, one of them only took 3 steps back. His clothes were torn open, but his body was not injured at all. Lu Tao's pupils shrank. Endurance Kung Fu. That man had a square face and a wide mouth. He was 2 meters tall, and his chest was like a small mountain. His chest was like an iron plate, and there was a faint dark blue color on it. It did not look like a human's body. Hee, I have trained the iron shirt martial art, plus I have been soaking in the medicinal wine every day. I have already trained my skin to be as hard as iron. As long as I do not lose my chi, I will be fine no matter how many times you attack me. Come on, you are looking for death. It was Wang Haichuan who spoke. He swung the azure dragon halberd in a circle and pushed back a few people who were attacking him. Then he turned his body and stabbed towards his opponent. This time, the tall man did not dare to underestimate Wang Haichuan. He knew that no matter how hard he trained the iron shirt, he would not be able to train his body to be as hard as iron. He was not afraid of ordinary blunt weapons, but if he was stabbed by a sharp weapon, he would be finished. Not to mention that Wang Haichuan's attack was so powerful that it could even pierce through iron armor. Putting his hands together, the tall man suddenly grabbed the azure dragon halberd, not letting it move an inch. Seizing the opportunity, Lu Tao landed in front of his opponent and lightly pressed his palm on the halberd. Puff! Like a hammer hitting leather, the tall man's mouth started to bleed, and a shallow palm print appeared on his chest. It was a patch of green and red. At this moment, two ferocious men took the opportunity to attack Lu Tao. Lu Tao cursed inwardly. Although he had wounded the tall man with his palm, his arms were numb from the recoil force, and he could not even breathe. Wang Haichuan was also powerless. The ferocious men, who had been pushed back by him, started to attack even more crazily, making him feel like he could not resist. On the other hand, Yao Qing and the twins could still hold on. After all, they were in a one-on-one situation. Seeing that Lu Tao was about to be killed, a beautiful and bright sword light suddenly shot out. It twisted twice in the air, and the two ferocious men's necks started to bleed, and they fell straight down. After the successful sword attack, Yi Chun did not stop. He stabbed the other ferocious man's heart with a gap-seeking move, helping Wang Haichuan reduce the pressure. "Thank you," Lu Tao, who had narrowly escaped death, said gratefully with a pale face. Yi Chun nodded and said, "Let's kill them first." In fact, after killing Ma Wu, their fates had been sealed. It was only a matter of time. In a short while, except for the man who practiced Iron Shirt, the others were all dead or injured. On Yi Chen's side, except for himself and Lu Tao, the others were more or less injured. "Where do you think you're going?" Wang Haichuan noticed that the tall man was trying to escape, so he threw the 2-meter-long azure dragon halberd at him. Crack! The tall man, who had been through hundreds of battles, dodged the azure dragon halberd by a hair's breadth. However, the monk could not run away from the temple. Yi Chen's body followed the sword, and with one strike he broke the man's iron shirt and pierced his heart. Chapter 10. After the crisis was over, Lu Tao and the others let out a sigh of relief, but at the same time, they were shocked. Killing a mortal realm stage 10 ugly man and a strong man with copper skin and iron bones all by himself, this kind of fighting power was really scary. Even the first outer disciple of the Golden Light Realm could not do this, and even those newly promoted inner disciples might not be able to do it. Even if they could, they might not be able to escape unscathed, unlike Yi Chun, who hid his power well. "Brother Yi, I, Lu Tao, have never admired anyone before, but today I admire you," Lu Tao said with a serious face. Yi Chun did not say anything. He just smiled lightly. The group of strong men had brought them more than 3,000 silvers, and after splitting it evenly, each of them got more than 500 silvers, which was quite an unexpected windfall. Everyone goodbye. After getting enough silvers, Yi Chun did not want to work with them anymore. He was ready to go to the Silent Hills by himself to gain more experience. Lu Tao said, "All right, we are about to go back. You be careful." When they were about to leave, Yao Qing could not help but say, "Yi Chun, remember to come and play with us." Yi Chun nodded, "Maybe next time." Soon they were gone. Yi Chun thought to himself, "Not long after I came out, I have already gotten 2,700 silvers, which is enough to buy some expensive materials to train my body. As for the medicines that are good for training qi, forget about it. Those things can easily cost more than 10,000 silvers. I can't even afford them." Aside from that, what really confused Yi Chun was why he did not feel much when it was his first time killing someone. Could it be because of his soul power? Shaking his head, Yi Chun really could not understand. The Silent Hills was 1,000 miles wide, and there were countless beasts. As far as Yi Chun knew, the outer 100 miles only had rank 1 and 2 beasts, and the chances of encountering rank 3 beasts were very low. Like that big poisonous sawtooth beast, it was actually not a rank 3 beast. It could only be counted as a quasi-rank 3 beast. Between 200 and 500 miles was the danger zone, where rank 3 to 5 beasts could appear at any time, and with his current strength, encountering them would only mean death. As for the area beyond 500 miles, it was the real forbidden zone. Decades ago, a powerful party sent their warriors to the deeper part of the zone to find some rare herbs. But unfortunately, they encountered a rank 7 beast, Ghostface Bull. Out of more than 100 people, only one escaped, but he died after a few days. The reason was because his body was too strong, and he went crazy. Since then, no one had dared to enter. Within 10 miles, Yichun had killed 3 demonic beasts. The third one was a rank 2 demonic beast, the Rampage Bull. Yichun had grabbed its horns and killed it with his fists. After collecting the demonic beast materials, Yichun decided not to go any deeper. Instead, he chose to explore the path horizontally. He did not want to run into any beasts above rank 3. Time flew by quickly. On the third day, Yichun carried a big leather bag on his back, heading back to the Windy Town. The Elixir Hall was the only medicine shop in the Windy Town. It was not that big, and the shop was not that luxurious, but in terms of wealth, it was definitely one of the best. After all, the richest people in this world were warriors, and most of their money was spent on medicines or pellets that could help them train. They did not even frown when it came to spending money. For them, money could be earned back, but increasing their cultivation was something that could only be found by luck. Stepping into the Elixir Hall, Yichun frowned. The shop was bustling with people. Most of them were warriors in tight clothes, and some were young masters from rich families. There were also 1 or 2 people that even Yichun could not see through. They were probably condensing reality realm warriors. Walking to the counter, Yichun put the big leather bag with the materials on it. Shopkeeper, demonic beast materials. The shopkeeper was an old man wearing a black robe with golden edges. He had a calm temperament. He walked over and opened the leather bag. While counting the materials, he said, "Poisonous sawtooth beast material is worth 520 silvers. Bald-tail wolf material is 85 silvers. Violent bull material is 380 silvers. That's 1,650 silvers in total." Yichun said, "Change them all to gold notes." The gold notes were the same as the silver notes that Yichun knew. They could be exchanged for gold at the bank, or they could be bought and sold directly. The minimum amount was 5 silvers, and the maximum was 10,000 silvers. The storage fee was 3% of the total amount, which meant that if you deposited 100 silvers, you could only take out 97 silvers. As for the bank that issued the gold and silver notes, there was no need to worry about it going bankrupt. There was a saying that even if the Windy Nation was destroyed, the Bank of God would still be standing strong. This was referring to the stability of the gold notes. After all, as a super large bank that spanned over 10 nations, it would be impossible for it to go bankrupt so easily. There were countless forces protecting it in the dark, and the country was one of them. After ordering the workers to keep the demonic beast materials, the shopkeeper opened the safe and took out a few shiny gold notes. He placed them on the counter neatly. "Here, a total of 165 silvers. You can count it." Yichun took a quick glance at the notes, then nodded and put them away. He then shifted his gaze to the shelves on the side. As a shopkeeper, he was good at reading people's expressions. The old man smiled and said, "Young warrior, what can I do for you?" Yichun said, "I need some body-strengthening pellets or herbs. Can you tell me about them?" "No need for such trouble. I will give you a list of body-strengthening medicines. The effects and prices are marked on it. It will be easy to understand." "All right." A moment later, the shopkeeper went to work, and Yichun took out a piece of paper filled with words. Tiger Dragon Bone Refining Pellet, refined with the blood essence of a blood-marked tiger and horned python, 5,000 silvers per pellet. Demon Ox Strength Pellet, refined with the blood essence of a berserk bull and primordial grass, 3,500 silvers per pellet. Flying Swallow Pellet, 2,000 silvers per pellet. After a long while, Yichun shook his head. Body-strengthening pellets were just too expensive. They cost 2,000 to 3,000 silvers every time. He could only afford 1 Tiger Dragon Bone training pellet with all of his money, and the effect of the pellet was only for 3 days. It was not enough for long-term training. Thinking of this, Yichun was a little envious of those who were blessed by the heavens. They received top-notch training from a young age and ate pellets and elixirs as if they were jelly beans. In a few years, the amount of money they spent could probably fill up a house. It would be strange if they didn't improve quickly. Of course, external help was still external help. Perhaps they could become an ordinary expert, but it would be difficult to reach a certain height. Looking at the bottom of the list, Yi Chen's eyes lit up. Got it. Body strengthening paste, refined with 3 sun grass, beef butter, ironwood juice, and 8 other ingredients. 100 silvers per bottle. That's it. Letting out a breath, Yi Chen raised his head and called over the shop assistant who was passing by. He said, "Give me 30 bottles of body strengthening paste." "All right, please wait a moment." 30 bottles of body strengthening paste filled an empty wooden box. After paying, Yi Chen carried it out of the elixir pavilion. Chapter 11. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. In the small yard, a shadow was steadily training. The strong and fierce fist power brought up a strong gust of wind that blew the dust on the ground into the air. After a set of punches, the silhouette suddenly exerted his strength and consecutively punched the waist-thick hard wooden pile twice. With a cracking sound, the wooden pile could not withstand the power of the punches and broke into 2. The upper half flew 7 to 8 meters away and disintegrated into small wooden pieces in the air. Finally, the punches had become soft and hard. There was only 1 day left until the Mu Run Gang Challenge, but Yi Chen did not have any thoughts of relaxing. He focused on training his King Kong fist. His powerful soul power allowed him to clearly feel every inch of his body's power. He could easily combine the power from every part of his body and create a deeper level of explosive power. This was also the reason why he was able to train his King Kong fist to the highest level. I think the creator of King Kong fist did not train it to the highest level. I have the advantage in this aspect, but the opponent's advantage in creating his own martial art has made me lose. Bitterly smiling at his own stupid thoughts, Yi Chen shook his head and walked to the stone table not far away. On the round stone table, there was a white porcelain bottle with a red wooden stopper. It was the body strengthening paste that cost 100 silver per bottle. Pop! Yi Chen opened the stopper and turned the bottle upside down. Soon, the milky yellow liquid flowed into his palm, and a light fragrance filled the air. Taking off his clothes, Yi Chen dipped his hands in the paste and wiped his body. So satisfying. After a couple of breaths, Yi Chen could only feel the heat slowly seeping in from the surface of his skin into his muscles, blood, and bones. It felt like there were ants trying to drill into his body, which was a bit itchy and painful. Looking down, Yi Chen could only see the muscles on his muscular body, shining like the most ferocious cheetah. His streamlined body was full of explosive power. It was hard to imagine that this was the body of a 14-year-old teenager. Of course, compared to Su Jing's seemingly weak body, Yi Chen's was at least twice as strong. After training for a while, Yi Chen put on his clothes, picked up his great steel sword, and walked out of the yard towards the announcement square of the West District of the Sky Cloud Martial School. The announcement square was the place where the Sky Cloud Martial School would announce important things. The opening of the Mu Run Gang should have already been announced. After all, many of the new disciples were still in a confused state and did not know what to pay attention to, just like Yi Chen. In fact, Yi Chen didn't have to go there on purpose. He already knew what he needed to know, and there wouldn't be any changes. However, the current him was different from the past. He couldn't live passively. He had to take the initiative and strive to be meticulous. Sometimes it was the details that determined success or failure. Moreover, the day before the Mu Run Gang Challenge, there would definitely be a lot of people gathered at the announcement square. This was a good opportunity to observe the strength of others. Along the way, Yi Chen realized that in the 2 years he had been in the Sky Cloud Martial School, he did not have a single friend that he could play with. Thinking about it, he felt like a failure. With a bitter smile, Yi Chen was a bit envious of the outer disciples around him. Seeing them talking and laughing, it was so fun. They arrived at the plaza. Looking around, a square marble plaza that was hundreds of meters wide appeared in front of them. In front of the plaza, there was a huge wall with a giant piece of paper on it, with the words Mu Run Gang Challenge Competition written in big black letters. Following the flow of people into the square, Yi Chen's ears were filled with all kinds of voices. Last year, the champion of the Mu Run Gang Challenge competition was the top outer disciple, Wu Zoming. I wonder who it will be this year? I think it will be Wu Zoming again. Who knows how much his strength has improved in the past 6 months? You're right, but I think the top outer disciple genius, Zhang Haoran, will win. Zhang Haoran, the one who reached the Mortal Realm Stage 10 at the age of 13. Yeah, I heard that when he joined the Sky Cloud Martial School at the age of 12, he was already at the Mortal Realm Stage 7. It has only been a year, and he has jumped from the Mortal Realm Stage 7 to the Stage 10. His speed is unbelievable. One of them sneered, no matter how talented Zhang Haoran is, he has only just reached the Mortal Realm Stage 10. Don't forget, Wu Zoming was already at the Mortal Realm Stage 10 half a year ago, and now he is only half a step away from the Condensing Reality Realm. To put it nicely, it is half a step away, but to put it bluntly, it is a failure, otherwise he would have reached the Condensing Reality Realm already. The one who spoke had a square face and thin lips. How dare you insult Wu Zoming? The outer disciple who spoke for Feng Zoming said angrily. The square-faced disciple did not back down. I know you are Wu Zoming's friend, but I am not. I am just stating the facts. No matter where it is, it makes sense. Huh, what a good makes sense. Suddenly, a cold voice came, followed by a sharp aura that came out of nowhere, like a whirlwind. Everyone looked over. 10 steps away, a young man in blue with a long sword on his back was standing there, staring at the person who was mocking him. It was the top outer disciple, Wu Zoming. Yichen stood on the side with great interest, thinking to himself, this is going to be interesting. The square-faced disciple who called Wu Zoming worthless seemed to be scared by the aura. He stuttered, What I said was not the truth. Wu Zoming sneered. Do you know what kind of people I hate the most? They're the cowards who talk behind people's backs. Now I will give you a chance to redeem yourself. If you can take one palm attack from me, I will let this matter go. Do you dare? One palm attack. The square-faced disciple's eyes flashed. He was at Mortal Realm Stage 8, 2 whole stages lower than Wu Zoming, but it should not be a problem for him to take one palm attack. At most, he would be slightly injured, but if he did not take it, then he would really be a coward, and he would not be able to hold his head up high in front of everyone. All right, one palm attack it is. What is there to be afraid of? After saying that, he slightly bent his body, his right arm hanging down, and his clothes fluttered even though there was no wind. Obviously, he was gathering his chi into his right arm. This is the starting movement of the little yiksha palm. Someone saw through it and couldn't help but say. The square-faced disciple smiled proudly. The little yiksha palm was a high-rank mortal realm martial skill. Normally, with his status, he would not be able to get this skill, but his uncle was an outer master of the Sky Cloud Martial School, so it would be easy for him to prepare a high-rank mortal realm martial skill for him. With the little yiksha palm, he was confident that he could take one attack from Wu Zoming and maybe not be at a disadvantage. Then he would be famous. Wu Zoming's expression did not change. He said lightly, Are you ready? The square-faced disciple raised his eyes. Anytime. At this moment, everyone held their breath, staring at the two of them. One was the top outer disciple, and the other was a Mortal Realm Stage 8 outer disciple. Although they had only exchanged one attack, they should be able to see part of their power. Even if they could not see anything, it would be good to learn something new. Chapter 12. On the empty field, Wu Zoming walked slowly towards the square-faced disciple. 10 steps, 9 steps, 8 steps, 5 steps. Surprisingly, the first to attack was not Wu Zoming, but the square-faced disciple. His legs slightly bounced up, and he took a step forward. His right arm drew a strange arc in the air and attacked Wu Zoming from below. Puff! The sound of the air shattering was heard, and a dark light flashed on the edge of the square-faced disciple's right hand. It was a sign that his chi was about to break through his body. Go back! Wu Zoming growled, and his palm landed on the square-faced disciple's right hand. Boom! The square-faced disciple's feet left the ground, and he was knocked back to where he stood. He took a dozen steps back and almost fell. Cough! Spitting out a mouthful of blood, the square-faced disciple pointed at Wu Zoming. You. He only managed to say one word before he fainted. Suddenly, the field was filled with noise. Although everyone knew that the square-faced disciple might not be able to take even one attack from Wu Zongming, they did not expect the gap to be this big. It also seemed that Wu Zongming did not use any martial skills and only used normal movements. The number one outer disciple was indeed powerful. Yi Chen's opinion was different from everyone else's. To be honest, the gap between Mortal Realm Stage 8 and Mortal Realm Stage 10 was not that big. Not to mention that the square-faced disciple had used a high-rank Mortal Realm martial skill, Little Yiksha Palm, which was almost at the threshold of Mortal Realm Stage 10. Even if he could not beat Wu Zongming, he would not have fainted. The real reason was something else. If Yi Chen guessed it right, Wu Zongming's martial art was of a higher level than the square-faced disciples. Whether it was the quality or the quantity of qi, the two were not on the same level. Besides, Wu Zongming had obviously trained his martial art to a higher level, and his control of his qi was much better than the square-faced disciples. Thinking of this, Yi Chen could not help but smile bitterly. The world he lived in was called the True Spirit Continent. It was a vast continent, and no one knew how big it was. No one knew how many people and beasts lived on this continent. The only thing that was certain was that this continent was dominated by martial schools and martial artists. Although countries were important, they were not as important. On this mainland, there were two things that were extremely important to a cultivator. One was martial skills, and the other was cultivation techniques. Compared to martial skills, cultivation techniques were several times more important. The value of a low-rank Mortal Realm skill was definitely not lower than a mid-rank Mortal Realm skill, sometimes even higher. If martial skills allowed a person to display 2 or even 3 times their combat prowess, then cultivation techniques were a person's foundation. The stronger one's foundation was, the greater the innate advantage one would have. Normally, if a warrior's martial art was 1 rank higher, the total amount of his qi would increase by 30%. In other words, if 2 warriors were at the same level, and one of them was practicing a low-rank Mortal Realm martial art, and the other was practicing a mid-rank Mortal Realm martial art, the latter would have 30% more qi than the former. If the latter was practicing a high-rank Mortal Realm martial art, then it would be 70% more qi than the former, and a top-rank Mortal Realm martial art would have 10% more qi than the former. There was a huge gap between the two. In addition to the total amount of internal qi, the higher the level of the cultivation method, the greater the quality of the internal qi. For example, if the internal qi produced by practicing a low-level cultivation method was compared to a piece of wood, then the internal qi produced by practicing a high-level cultivation method was like a piece of stone or even a piece of metal. How could wood compete with stone and metal? It was obvious that they were not on the same level. As the first outer disciple, Wu Zongming's skill was at least a mid-rank Mortal Realm, while Yi Chen's was a low-rank Mortal Realm. Even if Yi Chen was at the same level as him, Mortal Realm Stage 6, his qi would still be 30% more than Yi Chen's, not to mention that Yi Chen's cultivation was higher than his. Luckily, in terms of the quality of qi, Yi Chen was confident that he would not lose to Wu Zongming. A month ago, he had already trained his Cloud Qi spell to the peak level, which was 1 rank higher than what was described in the manual. It was roughly equivalent to the most common mid-rank Mortal Realm skill. Although Wu Zongming had defeated the square-faced disciple with 1 move, he did not look too proud. To him, the square-faced disciple was just a clown. Defeating him was not enough to make Wu Zongming happy. But teaching him a lesson was to let others know that even if he had failed in his breakthrough, he was still not someone that anyone could compete with. Clap, clap, clap. A handsome young man clapped his hands and walked over. That was amazing. No wonder you are the first outer disciple. Wu Zongming, you are qualified to be my opponent. Wu Zongming turned his head and squinted his eyes. Zhang Haoren. Zhang Haoren's body looked a bit young, but his temperament was quite mature. He smiled lightly and said, "You are training the high-rank Mortal Realm art, the Peiyuan art. I wonder which stage you have reached." "Sorry, I just reached the peak of the 4th stage." No wonder Wu Zongming was able to knock out the square-faced disciple with just 1 palm attack. It turned out that he had been training the growing yuan art. As a high-rank mortal realm art, the growing yuan art might not be the best in other aspects, but there was one thing that stood out from the rest. The growing yuan art was extremely rich and powerful. It was even more powerful than other arts of the same rank. Besides, the growing yuan art was divided into 5 stages, and reaching the peak of the 4th stage was already quite impressive. Unexpectedly, Zhang Haoran smiled proudly. Compared to ordinary people, you are indeed a genius. But today, you are no longer my opponent. Wu Zoming sneered. Arrogant people never have a good ending. Really? I am not afraid of hurting you, but I am training the high-rank mortal realm above the clouds art. But I have already reached the highest stage, the 5th stage. That is the difference between us. Hearing this, everyone in the square started to talk about it. This is ridiculous. Martial arts are the hardest to improve. Zhang Haoran has only learned the above the clouds art for 4 months, and he has already reached the 5th stage. How is this possible? That's right. High-rank mortal realm arts are usually divided into 5 stages. For an ordinary person to reach the 1st stage, it would take at least 3 to 4 days, 10 days for the 2nd stage, 1 month for the 3rd stage, 3 months for the 4th stage, and more than a year for the 5th stage. I remember there were some inner disciples who changed to a top-rank mortal realm art before, and they gave up on their previous high-rank mortal realm art. Looks like in terms of talent, Zhang Haoran is still the best. Different from the others who were shocked, Yi Chun thought it was reasonable. Geniuses were geniuses because they could not be judged with common sense. Otherwise, they would not be geniuses. As for Wu Zoming, he was not that bad either. He was only 1 step away from the 5th stage of the Peiyuan art. Maybe in another half a month, he would be able to reach the 5th stage. Wu Zoming was indeed surprised. He had obtained the high-rank mortal realm art half a year ago after winning 1st place in the Murin Gang. He thought that reaching the peak of the 4th stage in half a year would already be amazing. Normally, it would take about 5 months to reach the 4th stage from the 1st stage, and another 5 months to reach the peak of the 4th stage. He did not expect Zhang Haoran to be even more talented than him, reaching the highest stage of the 5th stage in just 4 months. Taking a deep breath, Wu Zoming said calmly, "Don't talk too much. Power is not something you can compare with." Zhang Haoran grinned. "That's right. Therefore, I will be the champion of this Mu Run Gang competition." After he finished talking, he turned around and walked away, leaving everyone staring at his back. Chapter 13. Watching Zhang Haoran leave, everyone was impressed and jealous at the same time. They were all human beings. How could he reach Mortal Realm Stage 10 and Over the Clouds art at the age of 13? Was there really such a huge difference between a genius and a normal human being? Yichin shook his head, turned around, and walked towards the notice board. On the giant piece of paper, there were lines of fist-sized words written with a silver hook and an iron pen. Obviously, it was written by a master who was good at calligraphy. Looking at the paper, other than some things to look out for, there's also a list of rewards for successfully passing the Murin Gang. It was a chi-boosting pellet unique to the Sky Cloud Martial School, which could save 1 month of hard work. If it was used to break through to the condensing reality realm, the success rate would definitely increase. Of course, it was only possible to break through to the mortal realm, and not from a mortal realm to the condensing reality realm. Right now, what I need the most is time. This chi boosting pellet can save 1 month of hard work. It is very useful for me. Yichin smiled and continued reading. The top 10 winners of the Mu Run Gang will be able to choose a high-rank mortal realm martial skill. The top 6 will be able to choose 3 Windy Dew pellets. The top 3 will be able to choose a high-rank mortal realm martial skill, and the winner will be rewarded with a chi boosting pellet. Yi-chan squinted his eyes. He did not really care about high-rank mortal realm martial skills, but the Windy Dew pellet was a magical pellet that could help with chi training. According to some people, after taking the pellet for 10 days, the warrior would feel refreshed and free of all distracting thoughts. Their training speed would also increase by leaps and bounds, and it would be much easier for them to learn martial arts. Even many inner disciples wanted to get their hands on it. It was worth more than 10,000 silvers. It could only be found by luck. The only downside was that it could not be used frequently. It was said that the effect would get worse and worse every time it was used, until the end, there would be no effect at all. As for the high-rank mortal realm martial skill, Yichen could feel that his training speed would increase by leaps and bounds, and the quantity and quality of his chi would reach new heights. In other words, with a high-rank mortal realm martial skill, Yichen's overall power could easily double. Looking at the prize for the first place, Yi Chun forced a smile. Without a doubt, the Yuan boosting pellet was the most valuable pellet. It could help a mortal realm warrior level up, and it could even help a warrior break through to the condensing reality realm. However, Yi Chun was not confident at all. Although Ma Wu was also a mortal realm stage 10 warrior, he was nowhere near as talented as Wu Zhongming and Zhang Haoren. Both of them were geniuses. Their martial arts and martial skills were way better than the others, and their comprehension was also top-notch. It would be almost impossible to win against them, unless Yi Chun could break through from Mortal Realm Stage 6 to Mortal Realm Stage 8. Slowly letting out a breath, Yi Chun made up his mind. He wouldn't hope for the first or second place, but he had to get the third place. If he missed this opportunity, he wouldn't be able to forgive himself. The night was over, and the first rays of the morning sun shone from the east. In the courtyard, Yi Chun, who had just finished a set of fist techniques, was wiping the body refining paste. His body was as straight as a sword. After this Mu Run gang, it will be the Yi family gathering in half a year. Whether or not I can amaze the world will depend on today's result. Yi Chun knew very well that the second son of his eldest uncle, Yi Tang, and the daughter of his fourth uncle, Yi Xian, were both rare geniuses of the Yi family. They had reached Mortal Realm Stage 5 at the age of 12, and now that 3 years had passed, they had probably reached the peak of Mortal Realm Stage 10, or even the Condensing Reality Realm. A Condensing Reality Realm warrior was not easy to defeat. Even if Yi Chun had amazing comprehension, he still could not ignore the gap between them. Before Yi Chun even left the house, half of the Sky Cloud Martial School was already in an uproar. The Mu Rin Gang Challenge was an important day for most of the disciples. On that day, there would be some outer elders, inner disciples, and occasionally 1 or 2 inner elders would come to watch. As for the Mu Run Gang, it was located right in front of the plaza. It was usually closed, and no one would be able to see it from the outside. When Yi Chun arrived at the plaza, it was already filled with people. More than half of the 3,000 outer disciples had arrived, and they were all waiting on the plaza. There were also a lot of inner disciples and outer elders, all of them sitting on the high platform at the back of the plaza. Elder Lin, who do you think will be in the top 10 this time? The one who spoke was a teenager, about 16 or 17 years old. He was very handsome, and his skin was very white. The elder who was called Elder Lin laughed. Yin Tao, you're already one of the best among the inner disciples, and you are also interested in this. Yin Tao said, my talent is not that great, and people did not think highly of me when I was younger. So I understand how the outer disciples feel when they want to be in the top 10. That's true. Elder Lin nodded. From what I can see, most of the top 10 this time will be the same as the top 10 from last time, but with the addition of Zhang Haoren. Zhang Haoren? I have heard of him. I heard that he is the #1 genius among the outer disciples. Yesterday, there was news that Zhang Haoren had already trained his high-rank mortal realm above clouds art to the highest stage, the 5th stage. This kind of talent is really rare. The 5th stage of the above clouds art. No wonder the elder thinks so highly of him. Yin Tao looked surprised. When he was still an outer disciple, he also trained the above clouds art, but even after he became an inner disciple, he still had not reached the highest stage. Elder Lin looked at Zhang Haoren and said happily, the more geniuses there are in the Sky Cloud Martial School, the more potential we have. If one day we can become a rank 8 institution from a rank 9 institution, I, as the head elder of the outer sect, will die with a smile on my face. Yin Tao was excited by Elder Lin's words. Don't worry, Elder Lin. Although I am not as talented as the head sister and the others, when that day comes, I am willing to work for the Sky Cloud Martial School and help it become a rank 8 institution. Hee, as long as you have the heart. It was time for the Mu Rin alley to open. Crack, crack, crack. Under everyone's heated gaze, the huge wall in front of the square suddenly cracked open, revealing a deep alley. No one knew where it led to. At this moment, Elder Lin stood up and said loudly to the sea of people, "Everyone, today is the semi-annual Moo Run Alley Challenge competition. All outer disciples are qualified to participate. As for the reward for successfully breaking the Moo Rin Alley, you should have seen it on the notice board. I will not say much here. Now, let's enter the first round. Only those who have the ability to defeat a wooden guardian can enter the Moo Rin Alley." Elder Lin's voice was not loud, but with the help of his Jun Chi, it spread out for miles, and everyone could hear him clearly. Damn, last time I almost beat a wooden guardian, I can definitely do it this time. Me too, but I heard that in addition to the wooden guardians, there are also wooden sword artists. This is a bit tricky. No matter what the crowd thought, the Moo Rin Alley Challenge competition had officially begun. Kala. A row of 20 wooden guardians walked out. These wooden guardians were 2 meters tall, and their bodies were made out of a strange kind of wood. Their eyes were 2 thin crystals, emitting a cold light. Obviously, they were not ordinary creatures. Yichen was not surprised at all. It was said that wooden guardians were a special kind of puppet, invented 5,000 years ago by a rank 5 institution, the puppet school. Although they did not have any intelligence, they could sense the people around them and use them to attack. The Sky Cloud Martial School had obtained the method of making wooden guardians by chance. Unfortunately, these wooden guardians were not very powerful, only equivalent to a mortal realm warrior. Therefore, they were perfect for testing the outer disciples. Chapter 14. In the first round, 20 people would be tested together. Those who passed the test would stand on the right side and wait to challenge the Moo Run gang, while those who failed would have to leave. Last time, Yichen only lasted for 3 breaths before he was injured. The test began. Surprisingly, Wang Gang was among the first 20 people. With his peak of Mortal Realm Stage 7 cultivation, he should be able to defeat the Wooden Guardian. At least he wouldn't be killed instantly, which would be a joke. The Wooden Guardian sensed that someone was approaching, so it moved its heavy body and threw a punch towards Wang Gang. The strong wind from the punch blew his hair into the air. Speed was not Wang Gang's forte, so he quickly crossed his arms and blocked the Wooden Guardian's punch. His body was pushed back 3 steps. Stone-breaking strike. After taking 3 steps back, Wang Gang jumped up, raised his right palm, and chopped towards the Wooden Guardian's head. Bang! The Wooden Guardian's senses were indeed sharp. It blocked Wang Gang's deadly attack with its arms, then punched again with its left hand. The speed of the punch was so fast that it was hard for anyone to react. Damn, the Wooden Guardian is so fierce. Some of the outer disciples who had just joined the Sky Cloud Martial School couldn't help but exclaim. Even Yichen couldn't help but admire the Wooden Guardian's power. There was no sign of life, but its movements were steady and powerful. All of a sudden, Wang Gang bent his left leg and used his knee to block the Wooden Guardian's second attack. He used the force to fly back and landed 5 steps away. After getting some distance from the Wooden Guardian, Wang Gang knew that he couldn't beat it with brute force, so he had to surprise it. Double Dragon goes to sea. Seeing the Wooden Guardian chasing after him, Wang Gang gave up on using his stone-breaking strike and used the crouching dragon fist that he wasn't familiar with yet. He twisted his arms, and like 2 evil dragons, he dashed out. Crack! The Wooden Guardian's fist was locked. Wang Gang shouted coldly. He used both of his arms to block the opponent's fist, then threw out a flying kick. Meteor kick. Boom! With a powerful kick, the Wooden Guardian fell to the ground. The examiner next to him immediately yelled, "Pass." Different from here, the word fail could be heard from other places. Soon, the first group of 20 people finished their tests. Only 4 people passed, and the rest were all eliminated. They had no choice but to leave the square. As for the wooden guards, it was unknown what kind of wood they were made of, but they were basically unharmed. Fortunately, as long as they were defeated, they would pass the test. Otherwise, they would be exhausted to death. Not long after, the second test also ended, and only 1 person passed. 5 people from the 3rd group passed. 3 people from the 4th group passed. No one in the 5th group passed. In the 120th group, Wu Zongming and Zhang Haoren stepped out at the same time. The two of them looked at each other and walked up to the stage indifferently. Facing the wooden guardian in front of them, the two of them attacked almost at the same time. Wu Zongming's figure flashed, and like a ghost, he appeared in the arms of the wooden guardian. His right palm instantly pressed against the wooden guardian's chest, and with a ferocious shake, the wooden guardian was sent flying like a piece of straw. A clear palm print was left on the wooden guardian's chest. It could be seen how pure this palm strike was. As for Zhang Haoren, he was even more terrifying. He stretched out his body and directly ignored the distance of 10 meters between them. In the blink of an eye, he stretched out his 5 fingers and grabbed the wooden guardian's head. Then he stopped in his tracks and swung his arm. The wooden guardian was thrown more than 10 meters away. Damn, he killed the wooden guardian in 1 second. Everyone's eyes were wide open, and they could not believe what they had just seen. Wu Zongming's performance was already amazing enough, and he had sent the wooden guardian flying with 1 palm strike. However, Zhang Haoren seemed to be even better. In front of him, the wooden guardian was like a child that had not yet learned how to walk. In the 123rd group, Yi Chen stepped onto the stage. Without the speed of Wu Zongming and Zhang Haoren, Yi Chen only had the exquisiteness of his movements. With just a few punches and kicks, he had defeated the wooden guardian and successfully passed the stage. When the first round of the test ended, Elder Lin stood up and said, "A total of 365 people have passed. The second round will now begin. Now, everyone will enter the Murun gang." "Haoren, you said you could help me get to 3rd place, right?" Standing next to Zhang Haoren was a tall teenager, about 15 years old. At this moment, his breathing had quickened, and he could not help but ask. Zhang Haoren did not care and said, "Cousin, don't worry. With your strength, it is not difficult to pass the Murun gang. What is difficult is to get to 1st place, and I will stop the others at the right time." "That's great." It turned out that this teenager was Zhang Haoren's cousin, who had joined the Sky Cloud Martial School before Zhang Haoren. He had also participated in the Mu Run Gang competition before, but he was only in the 30s, far away from the top 10, not to mention the 3rd place. This time, if he could get to 3rd place, he would definitely get a high-rank Mortal Realm Martial Art Manual, a high-rank Mortal Realm Martial Skill Manual, and 3 Windy Dew pellets, which would be enough for him to reach the Condensing Reality Realm. At this moment, Zhang Haoren changed his tone, "But I can't go too far. You know the rules of the Sky Cloud Martial School." "I know, don't worry. Even without your help, I'm confident that I can get into the top 10. Good, let's go in." The Mu Run gang was like a bottle gourd. The entrance was very narrow and could only fit 5 people side by side. Once inside, the space suddenly opened up and there were 10 different alleys. 365 people were divided into 10 groups, and they all chose different alleys to enter. Shoo! 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 In the alley that Yi Chen had chosen, the walls and the ground on both sides suddenly cracked open, and a group of wooden guards and wooden sword artists jumped out. They cut down 5 to 6 people like a tornado, and screams were heard one after another. Dodging the attack of a wooden sword artist, Yi Chen took out his great steel sword from the scabbard and cut the wooden sword in half. Then he lowered his body and went through the wooden sword in an instant. That was close. Luckily, we were not in the crowd. Otherwise, there would be no space to dodge at all. As they moved forward, the number of people became fewer and fewer. From the original 30 to 40 people, there were only 20 people left, and 5 more alleys appeared in front of them, each with 4 or 5 people choosing the same alleys to move forward. On the other side, Zhang Haoren's feet flashed, and his clothes fluttered in the wind. All of the wooden guards and sword artists could not lock onto him. Occasionally, there would be 3 or 4 wooden guards in front of him, but they would also be blown away by his palm. The space became narrow, and Zhang Haoren stopped and thought, "The place in front is the place with the most wooden guards. When everyone comes here, I can secretly trip them up and make them hesitate. That way, my cousin will be able to get the 3rd place easily." As for the 1st place, Zhang Haoren thought that it would be a piece of cake. Even Wu Zongming was not qualified to compete with him, which was why he wanted to help his cousin. Plus, this was the only way to the finish line, Even if someone could threaten him, he would have the chance to take action. Chapter 15. Shu. The first one to arrive was Wu Zongming. He was only slightly slower than Zhang Haoran. Looking at Zhang Haoran with a confused look, Wu Zongming did not know what he was planning. Didn't he say he wanted to be the champion? Could it be that he was waiting for me on purpose? This is ridiculous. This guy is way too arrogant. Although he was confused and angry, Wu Zongming would not waste time on him because of this. He was about to pass through. Wait. Zhang Haoran blocked his way. Wu Zongming's face darkened. What do you mean? Zhang Haoran said lightly. Nothing else. Don't you think it's more fun with more people around? There's no need to rush. It has nothing to do with me. Move. Sorry, I can't agree to that. You're looking for death. Wu Zongming was furious. His slowed-down body suddenly sped up. His right fist turned red as it punched toward Zhang Haoran. High-rank mortal realm martial skill, burning fist. Zhang Haoran smiled and threw out a punch as well. Dong! The two fists collided. The surrounding walls and the ground seemed to shake. A strong gust of wind spread out in all directions. Wu Zongming felt his arm go numb. He could feel 3 layers of power coming from Zhang Haoran's fist. He immediately lost his balance and took 3 steps back. 3-layer flowing cloud force. The 3-layer flowing cloud force was the signature martial art of the Sky Cloud Martial School. Although it was only a high-rank mortal realm martial skill, many of the inner disciples were training it, not willing to give it up. The main reason was that the more powerful one was, the more powerful the 3-layer flowing cloud force would be. Zhang Haoran shook his hand to extinguish the fire on his fist. He looked a bit surprised. Looks like I have underestimated you. The burning fist can actually produce firepower. Same to you. Wu Zongming did not dare to underestimate his opponent. He pushed the inner qi in his body to the limit and kept it hidden, waiting for the critical moment to strike with a thunderous blow. The surprise on Zhang Haoran's face disappeared, and he laughed loudly. What do you mean by the same? Don't get me wrong. I only used 70% of my strength earlier. Zhang Haoran had the right to be arrogant. At the age of 13, he had not only trained his qi to the peak of Mortal Realm Stage 10, his Over the Clouds art had also reached the highest stage, the 5th stage, and his 3-layer flowing cloud force had also reached the completion stage. He was confident that he could even fight against a warrior who had just reached the condensing reality realm, not to mention Wu Zongming. Wu Zongming didn't say anything to refute, because he knew that any words were useless. The only thing that could be valued was strength. Pung! Sparks appeared on his red fist. The sparks increased and finally formed a faint flame. The fist wrapped in the flame was like a red-hot soldering iron, hard and hot. Wu Zongming sneered. Aren't you the only one who hasn't used your full strength? Interesting. Zhang Haoran was taken aback. Anger could be seen in his eyes. His opponent had been hiding his strength time and time again, making him feel like he was being looked down upon. After all, when he fought with others in the past, no one dared to not use their full strength. Otherwise, they would have been beaten senseless. An even more intense battle was about to begin. Right at that moment, a human figure flashed past. Seeing the two confronting each other, he cautiously slowed down and moved to the other side of the tunnel. It was Yi Chun. Although he was much slower than Wu Zongming and Zhang Haoran when he was using his full strength, he was still much faster than the others. After all, when facing the clumsy wooden dummies, the more subtle movements would give him the bigger advantage. Fighting with brute force would just be asking for trouble. I didn't expect these two to fight in the Mu Rin alley without caring about the competition. Noticing the cracks on the walls nearby, Yi Chen knew without guessing that there had been a huge battle here. The result should be a tie, or maybe they were just testing each other. However, I didn't care about the ranking, but Yi Chen did. If these two still didn't want to give up, the first place would probably be his. Maybe it would be a bit unfair, but who wouldn't want a pie falling from the sky? Flashing his feet, Yi Chen was about to enter the tunnel. How dare you? Since when is it your turn? Zhang Haoran was already a bit annoyed. Seeing that Yi Chen was ignoring them and wanted to enter the tunnel, he immediately vented his anger on him. Zhang Haoran's right hand pulled and released, and a cold qi burst out. Wherever it went, a thin layer of frost formed on the ground. High-rank mortal realm martial skill. Soaking cold palm. Yi Chen's eyes turned cold. He and Zhang Haoran did not hate each other, but his first move was the soaking cold palm. With his mortal realm stage 10 cultivation, it was definitely more powerful than a top-rank mortal realm martial skill used by a normal outer disciple. If he was hit by this palm, it would not be as simple as lying in bed for a few months. His meridians would be frozen and he would become a cripple. Although the Yi family was rich and could buy a lot of precious medicines to cure his wounds, it did not mean that he would be willing to take this palm and suffer for nothing. Mountain collapse. Taking out his great steel sword, Yi Chen dashed to the side with the momentum of a collapsing mountain and a landslide. His speed was as fast as lightning. It was a movement from the lone peak of 13 swords that focused on speed and footwork. Kalala. The place where Yi Chen was standing was covered in a layer of frost. It was not hard to imagine what would have happened to Yi Chen if he had not dodged it. Keeping his distance from Zhang Haoran, Yi Chen said expressionlessly, "This is too much. You're only a mortal realm stage 6 disciple. What makes you think you can be ranked 3rd? Don't even think about being ranked 1st. Go away." Zhang Haoran did not take Yi Chen seriously at all, even if Yi Chen had just dodged his palm attack. Even a man made of mud had a temper, not to mention the young Yi Chen. His eyes were filled with coldness. Yi Chen's knuckles bulged as he tightly gripped the sword hilt. Although he did not have the confidence, if he really wanted to fight to the death, he might be able to hurt his opponent. "What? You still want to fight? Believe it or not, I will cripple you right now. When the higher-ups find out, they will at most punish me a little. No one will give up on a genius like me for you." Zhang Haoran sneered. A hint of killing intent appeared in his eyes. Wu Zongming, who was standing on the side, had no reason to let Zhang Haoran continue to be so arrogant. He said sarcastically, "Such arrogance. I would like to see how you are going to cripple him in front of me." Zhang Haoran said in a creepy tone, "Wu Zongming, have you made up your mind to go against me? Don't regret it." "What a joke. What do I have to regret?" "Huh. Then let's see who will become a condensing reality warrior first. But I'm definitely going to cripple this brat right in front of you." His body suddenly lengthened. Zhang Haoran put his left hand behind his back, and his right hand was filled with frost chi. He moved like a dragon towards Yi Chen's head. Normal people would not have the chance to react to his sudden movement. In Zhang Haoran's eyes, Yi Chen would not be able to escape. Chapter 16. Feeling the cold chi, Yi Chen felt a sense of danger for the first time. He held his sword with one hand and held it with both hands, forming a thin sword screen in front of him. Puff! Just like ice meeting with boiling water, the sword screen melted under Zhang Haoran's palm power. Seeing that his opponent's palm was about to land on his chest, Yi Chen let out an angry roar and clenched his left hand into a fist. King Kong Infinite. This was the most powerful punch in the King Kong fist. Yi Chen had already practiced it to the point where it was both soft and hard. Combined with his anger, it was pushed to an unimaginable level. Before the two's fists touched each other, there was already a slight cracking sound. Zhang Haoran was shocked. He had never seen such a powerful King Kong fist. It was almost as powerful as a high-rank Mortal Realm skill. But so what? In terms of quantity and quality of chi, he had an overwhelming advantage. Piss off. With a cold chi, Zhang Haoran increased his power again. He pressed his palm onto Yi Chen's fist like lightning. Boom! The ice exploded, and Yi Chen was pushed back. Blood came out from the corner of his mouth, and his left arm was covered in cold chi. He could no longer exert any strength. Next time, remember to be careful. Not everyone can be offended. Zhang Haoran paused for a second and attacked Yi Chen again. At this moment, Yi Chen did not care about anything else. He shook his right wrist, and the great steel sword turned into a bright cold light and pierced out. It was obviously very close to Zhang Haoran, but at the same time, it gave people the illusion that it was still very far away. Even Zhang Haoran was stunned for a moment. He hurriedly reached out his left hand that was behind his back, trying to catch that sword edge. Seeing this, Wu Zongming knew that even if Yi Chen managed to hurt Zhang Haoran, he would still be disabled. Plus, he would be disabled right in front of him. How could he accept that? Merciless fire. With sparks flying everywhere, Wu Zhongming rushed out and threw a punch at Zhang Haoran from the side. Facing two attacks, Zhang Haoran could no longer stay calm. He took back his hands, waved his sleeves, and escaped from the encirclement in the blink of an eye. High-rank mortal realm skill, inching steps. Wu Zhongming didn't expect to hit Zhang Haoran, but his opponent's strength made him more and more afraid. Zhang Haoran's Over the Clouds art had been trained to the 5th stage. The flowing cloud triple force had been mastered, and the soaking cold palm had been mastered. Now, he also had the footwork martial skill inch travel steps. Who knew what other powerful martial skills he had hidden? Brother, what is your name? Wu Zhongming took a deep breath and turned to look at Yi Chun. Yi Chun was activating his inner chi to expel the coldness from his left arm. Hearing the voice, he said, Yi Chun, you should know my name, so I won't say too much. However, your fist and sword techniques are very impressive. I almost made a mistake. He had also noticed Yi Chun's punch. Although he was injured when fighting with Zhang Haoran, but among the outer disciples, not many could take a hit from Zhang Haoran. Not to mention that Yi Chun was only at Mortal Realm Stage 6. Excuse me, Yi Chun said calmly, but inside, he was anxious. The chi in his palm was like maggots in his bones. He could not get rid of it no matter how hard he tried. At this moment, Yi Chun started to regret his decision. If only he had trained a mid-rank Mortal Realm art. Even though his chi would not be as good as Zhang Haoran's, it would still be on the same level, and he would definitely be able to get rid of the chi. Of course, it was not Yi Chun's fault. A mid-rank Mortal Realm art was as valuable as a high-rank Mortal Realm skill. With his status as an outer disciple, he would not be able to get his hands on one. Although some of the more useless mid-rank Mortal Realm arts were available in the Martial Arts Pavilion, they were not easy to learn. It would take a lot of time and energy, and if one were to change their chi in the future, it would take up a lot of time to refine the original chi, which was not a good idea. Therefore, Yi Chun was planning to get a good art from the Mu Run gang, but he did not expect to run into a situation like this. Wu Zhongming, you are looking for death. Being pushed back by the two of them, Zhang Haoran's face turned red, then white, then purple, and finally blue. It looked creepy. Wu Zhongming said coldly, you don't have the right to say that. Very good. Today, neither of you will leave. Ice and Snow Universe. 10 layers of chi rose up. A blue light flashed across Zhang Haoran's body. That was the sign that he had pushed his above the clouds art to its limit. It was obvious that he was really angry and wanted to attack without caring about anything else. Zhang Haoran drew a half circle with both of his hands, and the sharp cold wind gathered into a ball, swirling around and pushing towards the two of them. Who? The cold wind blew like a tornado, and the ground was covered with layers of frost, spreading quickly. Wu Zhongming was taken aback. From the power of this palm, it was not difficult to see that Zhang Haoran was only one step away from condensing the fake into the real and transforming his inner chi into true chi. Otherwise, he would not be able to display the soaking cold palm to such an extent. It was simply like a real blizzard. Prairie fire. Wu Zhongming had not used all of his power for a long time, and this time, even his hidden power was forced out. All of a sudden, the heat wave was like a tide, and his face gradually turned red. In the end, it actually became like a fire jade with steam rising up, and his two fists became even hotter, almost melting. With a terrifying power, he punched out, facing that sharp cold wind. The ground was shaking, and the walls were shaken by the power. Pieces of rubble fell down. There was a loud bang. Zhang Haoran and Wu Zhongming both stepped back, but Zhang Haoran only took 3 steps back, and Wu Zhongming took 4. At this moment, a shocking sword light suddenly appeared, stabbing straight at Zhang Haoran's left rib. It was as fast as a fluttering rain, and it was silent. You are looking for death. Before Zhang Haoran could even take a breath, he saw Yi Chun attack with his sword. In a rage, he ignored the limits of his body, forcefully gathered his chi, and punched in the air. The fine steel sword was bent like a bow under the powerful chi, unable to move an inch forward. This made Yi Chun have a deeper understanding of Zhang Haoren's power. Zhang Haoren, take my punch. Wu Zongming seemed to have forgotten the fact that he was outnumbered. His feet shook, and his body directly pounced at Zhang Haoren. Without the support of enough qi, Zhang Haoren could not perform the inch travel steps. He secretly hated Wu Zongming as he exchanged punches and palms, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. You forced me to do this. Using the impact of the opponent's punch, Zhang Haoren exaggerated 10 steps back. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said. Hearing this, Wu Zongming thought to himself, does this guy still have martial skills that he hasn't used yet? Yi Chun also frowned. He had to admit that Zhang Haoren was the only genius that he admired so far. He had already mastered a few of his martial skills. Looking at the two seriously, Zhang Haoren clenched both of his fists. A strong blue light shone from his fists and finally turned into a beautiful blue airflow. Accompanied by the blue airflow, a slight tiger roar came out of nowhere. It was terrifying. Tiger roar, dragon fist. Seeing this, Wu Zongming's expression changed drastically. He blurted out, top-rank mortal realm martial skill, tiger roar, dragon fist. This is bad. How did this Zhang Haoren learn so many martial skills? Yi Chun had heard of this martial skill before. It was said that among the top-rank mortal realm martial skills in the Sky Cloud Martial School, only the monster-killing fist could compete with the tiger roar, dragon fist. Normally, only the inner disciples could learn top-rank mortal realm martial skills, but Zhang Haoren had obviously broken this rule. Chapter 17. Zhang Haoren sneered and stretched his body. He then dashed towards the two of them like a dragon. While he was on the way, his fist, which was wrapped in blue qi, was thrown out with all of his strength. It left a beautiful trail of light in the air. At first glance, it looked like there was a blue qi dragon on his fist. The roar of a tiger shook the sky. Wu Zongming and Yi Chun had already lost their footing before this punch had even landed. They felt as if there was a peerless dragon swooping towards them, and its power was so great that they couldn't even think of fighting back. Of course, if they did not fight back, they would definitely die. When Yi Chun was about to make a move, he realized that Wu Zongming was already prepared. Zhang Haoren, don't think that you can beat me with your tiger roar dragon fist. Burning fire sacrifice spell. Wu Zongming put his palms together. His qi increased rapidly, fighting against Zhang Haoren's punch. He then jumped at Zhang Haoren and threw out a punch that seemed slow but was actually fast. Yi Chun was shocked. The Burning Fire Sacrifice spell was an extremely powerful auxiliary martial art. By burning qi, it could increase the user's power to a new level. But when the time was up, the user's body would be damaged to a certain extent. If used too many times, the user could even become a disabled person. Boom! When the two fists collided, the debris on the ground flew in all directions. In the next second, both of them were blown back, spitting out a small mouthful of blood. No wonder you have the guts to fight against me. You have learned the Burning Fire Sacrifice spell. The Burning Fire Sacrifice spell was not a high-rank martial art. It was only a high-rank mortal realm martial art. But once used, it could increase the user's power by 30%. However, the side effect was too big. It could damage the user's body or even cripple the user. So no one dared to use it frequently. It was listed as one of the forbidden martial arts in the Sky Cloud Martial School. Even if Zhang Haoren stopped Wu Zongming, he would have to pay a huge price for it. It might even affect his progress to the condensing reality realm. Wu Zongming was about to say something, but he realized that someone was coming from behind. He sneered, "Sorry, I can't keep you company." Shoo! With the help of the Burning Fire Sacrifice spell, Wu Zongming's speed had reached its limit. He rushed into the tunnel with a wave of heat and disappeared in a flash. I have to say, you're very lucky. Zhang Haoren wanted to teach Yi Chun a lesson, but he was afraid that Wu Zongming would take the first place. Not to mention that he was not only injured, but the tiger roaring dragon fist had also consumed most of his internal qi. It was hard to say whether he could get what he wanted, so he had to leave behind a meaningful sentence and then dashed into the passageway. Yi Chun sneered in his heart and continued to expel the cold air from his body. Swish, Swish, swish. In a short while, at least a dozen people had entered the passage. After a short while, Yichen opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of cold air. His right hand tightened its grip on the hilt of his sword. He tapped the ground lightly and shot into the tunnel like an arrow leaving the bow. In the deep tunnel, the wooden machete men jumped out one by one, slashing at anyone they saw. The dozen people running in front of Yichen had no choice but to slow down, lest they were eliminated at the last moment. Damn, that person behind us is so fast. The person at the back saw that Yichen could ignore the attacks of the wooden swordsmen and always escape from danger at the critical moment. He could not help but exclaim, "Ah!" Just as he finished his words, he was slashed to the ground by a wooden machete man. He regretted that he did not pay attention. Yichen flew over from above and cut down the incoming wooden blade with one sword strike. Then he narrowly passed between two wooden machete men. His timing was perfect. As for the reason why Yichen could be so calm, it was all because of his powerful soul power. He did not need to use his eyes to sense everything within 5 meters around him. Moreover, after precise calculations, he could quickly choose the best route, which could save him a lot of time. Overtake 5 people. Overtake 10 people. Overtake 13 people. Yichen finally returned to the 3rd place, leaving the 4th place far behind. The exit of the Mu-Run alley was actually in the same direction as the entrance. In other words, all the challengers had taken a big detour inside. It was hard to imagine how big the so-called Mu-Run alley was. Although they could see the exit, it did not mean that they had succeeded. At the exit stood a slender and short wooden machete man. Its whole body was made from hundreds of pieces of dark redwood. It held a slender, long blade in its hand. It did not seem to have any life force, but it was emitting a terrifying magical power. Bada bada. The wooden machete men rushed towards Yichen. It was getting faster and faster. When it was 5 steps away, it waved its blade. Chin! Yichen felt like his great steel sword was about to fly out of his hand. He was shocked at the wooden macheteman's power. The first blade was blocked, but the wooden macheteman's second blade followed. It did not have any changes, only speed and ruthlessness. Find an opening. Yichen calmed himself down and shook his great steel sword. Like a mudfish, he stabbed the wooden macheteman's elbow joint at a weird angle. Although he did not manage to break his opponent's elbow, he managed to create a flaw in its movement. Thus, Yichen hurriedly threw a punch at its chest. Boom! The wooden machete man was blown away. He had succeeded. Outside the exit, Master Lin looked at Yichen with surprise. He smiled and said, "Congratulations on getting the 3rd place. Here are 3 Windy Dew pellets. As for the high-rank mortal realm martial skills and martial arts, you will have to go to the Pavilion of Martial Arts to pick them yourself. This is the tag for the 2nd floor of the Pavilion of Martial Arts. It can only be used once." Putting away the pellets and the tag, Yichen let out a sigh of relief. It was not easy for him to get the 3rd place. Wu Zoming walked over with a smile on his face. A high-rank mortal realm martial art and not having one are 2 completely different levels. I am afraid that you will catch up with me in the future. Yichen blocked a punch from Zhang Haoran with his mortal realm stage 6 power. His martial arts were not that high, which made Wu Zoming very curious about him. He wanted to make friends with him. After all, one more friend was better than one more enemy. Yichen said modestly, "You flatter me. If it were not for you, I would not even be able to stand here. Let's not talk about this. We should talk more in the future." "Of course." "All right. You need to be careful of Zhang Haoran. Although he could not do anything to me, he might come after you. You should be careful." Yichen nodded and looked towards Zhang Haoran's direction. Zhang Haoran's face was very pale. This time, he had suffered a huge loss. Not only did he not win against Wu Zoming, he did not even keep his promise to his cousin. Luckily, he got the 1st place with his inch travel steps, otherwise he would have been vomiting blood. As for Yichen, he did not care too much about Zhang Haoran. With a high-rank mortal realm martial art, he was confident that he could increase his power to the next level in a short period of time. If he had a few more months, he would have trained his chi to the 7th or 8th stage and trained his martial art to the highest level. By then, it would not be impossible for him to fight against Zhang Haoran. Of course, Zhang Haoran's Tiger Roar Dragon Fist was a threat. It was quite hard to deal with, and could be considered as one of the best top-rank Mortal Realm martial arts. However, Yichen was not weak either. With a lone peak of 13 swords, with this unique sword art, Yichen had nothing to fear. Chapter 18. After a night's rest. The next morning, Yichen once again came to the pavilion of martial skills. The pavilion master knew most of the inner disciples and all of the core disciples, but the outer disciples only knew a few people, such as Zhang Haoran and Wu Zoming. But strangely, the moment Yichen entered the pavilion, he recognized him and smiled at him. Yichen felt strange, but still said politely, "Greetings, master." The pavilion guardian elder nodded and said, as a senior, "It's not a good thing to have too many martial skills. You should know what I mean." Yichen knew what he was thinking. He smiled bitterly. "Master, I'm going to the second floor. Here is my token," Yichen said as he handed the token to the elder. "Token? What? You got the third place in the Mu Ring gang?" The pavilion master's face was full of surprise. He could not help but ask. "Yes." The pavilion master hesitated. "You really mastered the lone peak of 13 swords?" Seeing Yichen nodding, the pavilion master still could not believe it, but he had to believe it. Getting the third place with only an incomplete lone peak of 13 swords was too easy. After all, Yichen was only at the mid-mortal realm stage 6. Although he was the pavilion master, he could not ask too much. He reminded, "Those who can go to the second floor are all inner disciples and core disciples. They will more or less show their arrogance in front of you, an outer disciple, so remember not to mess with them. Also, you're not an official inner disciple, so you have to come down in 15 minutes, so you need to pick a martial skill as soon as possible." "I know." Yichen understood this. Although inner disciples and outer disciples were both disciples, their positions were completely different, and if he had a conflict with an inner disciple, he would be the one to suffer. As for picking a martial skill within 15 minutes, it was to prevent outer disciples from secretly memorizing other martial skills. The staircase was deep on the left. Yichen walked over with a calm expression. As soon as he went upstairs, Yichen felt an invisible pressure on his face. Looking around, there were about a dozen people on the second floor. Some of them were reading the secret manual seriously, some were chatting in low voices, and some were holding a few secret manuals and making a choice. Among these people, the oldest was no more than 20 years old, and the youngest was about the same age as Yichen. All of them had an unfathomable temperament. They were inner disciples. The inner disciple who was closest to Yichen turned his head out of habit with a hint of doubt on his face. Then he seemed to have thought of something and muttered, "I almost forgot. Yesterday was the Mu Ring Gang Challenge. This person should be in the top 10. After muttering to himself, he turned his attention back to the secret manual and stopped paying attention to Yichen. Taking a few steps forward, Yichen looked around and realized that the layout was similar to the first floor, but it was more classical and elegant. The bookshelves were not made of normal wood, but were made of valuable sandalwood. The aroma coming from the sandalwood was rich, and it had the effect of calming one's soul. The bookshelves were divided into 5 layers. The bottom 3 layers were filled with high-rank Mortal Realm manuals, and the top 2 layers were filled with top-rank Mortal Realm manuals. There were 3 to 5 manuals on each layer, and at most 7 manuals. On the side of each bookshelf, there were labels such as Training Art Type, Auxiliary Art Type, Movement Art Type, Attack Art Type, Defense Art Type, and so on. Without further ado, Yichen only had 15 minutes to make a choice. First, he went to the section with the martial skill manuals. Yichen randomly picked up a manual, flipped through the title page, then put it down. Then he picked up another one and put it down. Out of the dozens of manuals, there were only 9 that caught his eye. They were Burning Fist, Attack Art, Inch Travel Steps, a movement skill, 8 Steps Chasing Cicada, Movement Art, Yuan Chi Force, Defense Art, Formless Counterattack, Defense Art, Golden Swallow Art, Movement Art, 4 Parts Fist, Attack Art, Sword Draw Art, Attack Art, Deadwood Seal, Attack Art. These 9 martial skills might not be the best high-rank Mortal Realm martial skills, but they were definitely the most suitable for Yichen. Therefore, even he was a bit tempted by them. The Burning Fist was Wu Zongming's main martial skill. Its power did not need to be mentioned. Once he mastered it, he would be able to create a fire power, which would be able to deliver a fatal attack to the enemy. The inch steps was the footwork that Zhang Haoran trained. It was like shrinking the ground into an inch. It was very scary and practical. The 8 steps chasing cicada focused on the explosive power within 8 steps, which was enough to increase one's speed by 50% or more. No matter how fast the enemy was, they would not be able to escape from the palm of their hands. It was the best choice for chasing and killing enemies. The Yuan Qi force was a bit more mysterious. It needed the help of Qi to cultivate a special kind of Yuan Qi. This Yuan Qi was just like Qi. It would be stored inside the body, and when it was used, it would automatically appear and protect the body. However, every time it was used, it would be used up. The first 4 were already the best. If there were no other choices, Yi Chun would definitely choose one of them. However, with the last 5, Yi Chun had no choice but to give up on them. The non-phase counterattack was a defensive martial skill, but it was also an offensive martial skill. It focused on being able to predict the enemy's movements and counterattack with defense. If the enemy was strong, I would be strong. If the enemy was weak, I would be weak. If the enemy did not move, I would not move. It was very hard to deal with. If one mastered it, he would be able to stand on the ground. The Golden Swallow art was a movement skill. It allowed the user to walk on water without a problem. When mastered, the user would be able to fly more than 100 meters in the air, as light as a swallow flying on grass. When he saw the introduction of the fragmented fist art, Yi Chun could not help but let out a sound of surprise. This martial skill was so fierce and overbearing, it did not even have a hint of softness in it. With one punch, the target would definitely be torn into pieces. It could be said that it had reached the pinnacle of hardness. It was quite extreme. Hardness cannot last long. Tai Chi is about yin and yang, hard and soft. Not to mention this martial skill, I'm afraid that if I can't defeat the enemy, I will be defeated by the enemy. It is too extreme. Yi Chun shook his head and gave up on the fragmented fist art. As for the sword drawing art, it was about the explosive power produced in the moment of drawing the sword. The strength and speed of the sword drawing art was much greater than the direct swing of the sword. Therefore, the first move was to hit the enemy first and to kill the enemy in one move. Yi Chun practiced the lone peak of 13 swords. If he could combine it with the sword drawing art, then from drawing the sword to putting it back, there would be no flaws to speak of unless the opponent's strength or martial skills were much higher than his. However, there were many things that were not the case. The sword drawing art was not bad, but it was not a wise choice for those who practice sword arts. It was the same as the fragmented fist art. It was too extreme. The first move was to injure the enemy, and if it could not injure the enemy, the spirit would be wasted. Therefore, the sword drawing art was not suitable for swordsmen. It was suitable for assassins. The last martial skill was the Deadwood Seal. This martial skill was good at hiding its aura. When it attacked, it was silent. Often, the enemy would not even notice it and would be killed directly. In addition, the name of the Deadwood Seal seemed lifeless, but in fact, it contained infinite vitality. Before the attack hit the target, the essence Qi would be tightly locked. Only at the moment when the attack hit the target would it be like an old tree in the spring, radiating a terrible vitality and explosive power. Chapter 19. Which one should he choose? Yi Chun thought for a while and quickly made his choice. He reached out his hand and picked up the Golden Swallow art. There was a reason for him to make such a choice. Compared to offensive and defensive martial techniques, movement martial techniques were more suitable for survival. It must be known that in the world of martial techniques, there was nothing that could not be overcome. Only speed could not be overcome. When one's speed reached a certain realm, before the enemy could even hit you, you would already be able to injure them. This was more powerful than any offensive martial technique. Taking a step back, even if you could not defeat your opponent, you could still use your extraordinary speed to escape. Defensive martial skills could protect you for a while, but could not protect you forever. As for the inch swim steps, the 8 steps chasing cicada, and the Golden Swallow art, Yichen didn't really care why he chose the Golden Swallow art. It was just a feeling. Now that he had chosen the martial skill, it was time for the martial skill. What do you mean? I had my eyes on this iron cloak technique first. At this moment, a commotion broke out from the third bookshelf. Yichen immediately knew who it was. He curiously walked out from between the shelves and looked towards the direction of the noise. 10 steps away stood two people. One of them was handsome, no more than 13 years old. He looked young and immature. He must be Zhang Haoran, who had just arrived. The other was about 17 or 18 years old. He was wearing a yellow robe and had a strong body. His arms were even thicker than Zhang Haoran's. He had a square face and a square chin. His eyes were long and narrow, giving off a cold light. He looked like a combination of a tiger and a poisonous snake. The two were fighting over a high-rank mortal realm defensive skill called Iron Cloak Art. This skill was not of a high rank, but it was very practical and effective. Its popularity was no less than a top-rank mortal realm skill. Zhang Haoran wanted to take it back and train to make up for his low defense, but he didn't expect that it would be snatched away by Zhang Haoran. Zhang Haoran even glared at Zhang Haoran, telling him to get out of here. Zhang Haoran couldn't take it anymore. He was furious. The yellow-clothed youth chuckled and said, "An outer sect disciple dares to be so arrogant. Scram home and drink milk." Zhang Haoran's face darkened. "Don't think I don't know who you are. Huang Bingwen, 17 years old, early condensing reality realm, the second young master of the mayor's mansion." "It's good that you know," Huang Bingwen said proudly. "Pooh, 17 years old, and only at the early condensing reality realm. And you still have the nerve to come out and embarrass yourself? Why do you have to be so arrogant in front of me?" Zhang Haoran's words were shocking. As soon as this was said, the onlookers started to discuss. This person is Zhang Haoran, right? No wonder he dared to go against Huang Bingwen. However, his tone was sharp enough. "I'm afraid he will offend many people." Peak of Mortal Realm Stage 10 at the age of 13. If he could break through to the condensing reality realm by the end of the year, he would be one of the top 5 geniuses in the Sky Cloud Martial School. Looks like Huang Bingwen has kicked an iron plate. I heard that Zhang Haoran is favored by the inner disciple Elder Lu. He even made an exception and allowed Zhang Haoran to learn the top-rank Mortal Realm martial skill, Tiger Dragon Fist. Huang Bingwen's face darkened as he heard the discussions around him. He said in a creepy tone, "Little brat, you have guts. You only dare to be so arrogant because of your connections? What a joke. I, Zhang Haoran, need my connections. Do you dare make a bet?" 2 months later in the Martial Arts Plaza, the loser has to apologize to the winner. Zhang Haoran threw out another bomb. Huang Bingwen and the other inner disciples were all shocked. What kind of joke was this? An outer disciple challenging an inner disciple? All right. As you wish, I, Huang Bingwen, will accept. Although fighting with an outer disciple would be beneath his dignity, as long as he could beat his opponent easily, people would think that Zhang Haoran was too arrogant and would not blame him. Shoo! Grabbing the Iron Cloak skill manual from Huang Bingwen's hand, Zhang Haoran walked down the stairs without looking back. Huang Bingwen's face turned green. He had nowhere to vent his anger. When he realized there was another outer disciple on the second floor, he yelled, "What the fuck are you looking at?" Yichen was shocked. He did not expect to become Huang Bingwen's punching bag. Annoyed, he said coldly, "My eyes are on my face. Do I need your permission to look anywhere?" As soon as he said this, the surrounding inner disciples were shocked again. What was going on? This year's outer disciples were getting more and more arrogant. The first one was still okay, as he was at least at the peak of Mortal Realm Stage 10, and he had the support of an inner master. But this guy in front of them was only at the mid-Mortal Realm Stage 6. He was not famous, and no one knew him, but his tone was not any lower than Zhang Haoran's. Huang Bingwen was furious. His clothes were fluttering even though there was no wind. A dark brown light shone out of his body. It seemed like he was about to attack. "Huang Bingwen, what are you doing? Do you know what this place is?" One of the inner disciples with black hair scolded. Huang Bingwen shivered. He had almost forgotten that this was the pavilion of martial skills. Fighting was forbidden here. Once caught, he would be severely punished and would not be allowed to enter the pavilion for half a year. Withdrawing his Zhen Qi, Huang Bingwen looked at Yi Chun fiercely and threatened. Once we leave the pavilion of martial skills, I will teach you a lesson. Yi Chun frowned. This guy was like a mad dog. He would bite anyone he saw. But Yi Chun's cultivation was still low, so he would not be able to beat him. If he did not think of a way, he would definitely be at a disadvantage. After making up his mind, Yi Chun raised his head. I will also make a bet with you. 2 months later, we will fight in the Martial Plaza. Whoever loses has to apologize to the other. Do you dare? Like a bolt from the blue, Huang Bingwen himself was shocked. Huh? As if he had heard the funniest joke, Huang Bingwen pointed at Yi Chun and said, Do you think you can beat me in 2 months? You must be dreaming. What? You don't dare? Damn, I know you were trying to provoke me. Why would I not dare? In 2 months, I will teach you and that Zhang Haoran a lesson together. Huang Bingwen was still a bit patient. He knew that the more he suppressed his desire, the better it would be when he exploded. Anyway, 2 months would pass very quickly. If that is the case, then I will not disturb you anymore. 15 minutes were almost up, and Yi Chun still had to choose a martial art. He did not dare to waste any more time. Looking at Yi Chun's back, the other inner disciples showed their interest. They were hoping that 2 months would pass quickly. Who knows, they might be able to see something interesting. Next to the bookshelf of martial arts, Yi Chun was seriously making his choice. Six Sun Art Extreme Yang, Dead Tree Art, Restrained Qi, Silent and Silent. Flowing Cloud Art, Fast Qi Circulation, Fire Force. Little Star Skill, Using Small to Win Big, Pure Inner Qi. There were not many martial arts, but it was enough to dazzle Yi Chun. There were all kinds of martial arts, and there were even some that were not so popular. Time passed by slowly. Yi Chun was a bit anxious. If he did not hurry, time would be up. Annoyed, he randomly picked up a martial art manual. Yi Chun's eyes were fixed on it. Under this martial art manual, there was another martial art manual. It seemed like it was accidentally left there. On the cover of the martial art manual, there were 3 words written in black, Pure Yuan Art. Chapter 20. Picking up the Pure Yuan Art manual, Yi Chun opened it to the first page. Pure Yuan Art, Qi First Qi Revolution, 100 Rivers Flow, Second Qi Revolution, Third Qi Refine the Body, Fourth Qi Revolution, Fifth Qi Revolution, Sixth Qi Integration. All right, that's it. With only one glance, Yi Chun had already made up his mind. Training the Pure Yuan Art to the 5th twist, it would have the effect of combining the 6 elements into one. What was the meaning of combining the 6 elements into one? Combining the spirit, qi, soul, hands, eyes, and body into one. Combining the 6 elements into one, achieving the combination of the spirit and qi, the soul and qi, the hands and eyes, and the eyes and body. Perhaps its attack and defense were not as good as other arts, but the purity of its qi was definitely one of the best. There were not many mortal realm arts that could achieve spirit, qi, soul, hands, eyes, and body. Suddenly, an inner disciple appeared next to Yi Chun. He was reading a manual. Noticing Yi Chun's gaze, he smiled politely, but when he saw the manual in Yi Chun's hand, he was shocked. Pure Yuan Art? Yi Chun nodded. Yes. The disciple hesitated for a second, then said, The Pure Yuan Art is indeed a rare art, but in the past 100 years, no one in the Sky Cloud Martial School has reached the 5th Qi Revolution, and only a few have reached the 4th Qi Revolution. I suggest you choose another art, otherwise it would be a waste of time. Since this was the case, Yi Chun was more than happy that no one else was training the same art as him. As for the disciples saying that no one in the past 100 years had reached the 5th Qi Revolution, it was only because of mortal realm warriors. Once they reached the condensing reality realm, they would be qualified to receive a top-rank mortal realm art. Therefore, most people would give up on their original art. After all, a high-rank mortal realm art would not be as good as a top-rank mortal realm art. My time is up. After saying goodbye, Yi Chun walked downstairs with the 2 manuals. The disciple shook his head. He warned Yi Chun out of kindness. As for whether Yi Chun would listen or not, it was none of his business. It was hard to say if he would still remember Yi Chun in the future. On the bed, Yi Chun sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. His hands formed a series of hand seals, one above and one below, at the position of his dantian. Along with the rise and fall of his breathing, strands of heaven and earth yuan qi gathered from the surroundings, forming a whirlpool that quickly seeped into his body, circulating ceaselessly in his meridians. If someone could see through Yi Chen's body, they would discover that other than the cyclone in the center of Yi Chen's dantian, there was another cyclone forming slowly and forcefully. Phew! Slowly letting out a mouthful of turbid air, Yi Chen opened his eyes. An extremely obscure light flashed across his pupils. 6 hours to cultivate to the first revolution. It seems that I have underestimated my own ability. Yi Chen was very satisfied with his efficiency. For a moment, he felt proud of himself. However, this was just the beginning. The pure Yuan art had a total of 5 revolutions, and each revolution was extremely difficult. It would take at least a few days to reach the second revolution, and the third revolution would take a few times longer. The fourth revolution would take another few times longer, and the fifth revolution would not be as simple as just doubling the time. Although Yi Chen already had a preliminary understanding of his own potential, he was still a little surprised that he had reached the second revolution on the third day. Now, the second cyclone in his body was already 1/10 the size of the cyclone from the Cloud Chi spell, and it was even purer and more refined. It was like a transparent crystal without any impurities. On the 6th day, all the meridians in Yi Chen's body had been cleared. The pure Yuan Qi, inner Qi, continued to circulate without any hindrance. Bit by bit, it trained his body and extracted a very pure Yuan Qi from his bones and blood, merging it into his body and strengthening the cyclone. On the 7th day, the third revolution of the pure Yuan art was completed. Now, the second cyclone was already 1/5 the size of the first cyclone. Not only was it incredibly pure, but it was also spinning at extremely fast speed. It was like a powerful gear, sucking in and spitting out a huge amount of Yuan Qi and the inner Qi from the first cyclone. Yi Chen thought to himself, the pure Yuan Qi inner Qi is at least twice as pure as the Cloud Qi spell inner Qi. It's time to refine it. Otherwise, it would be very inconvenient to have 2 types of inner Qi in my body, and it would be hard for me to reach the 4th or even the 5th revolution of the pure Yuan art. Yi Chen put all his effort into activating the pure Yuan art and started to attack the Cloud Qi inner Qi. When the Cloud Qi inner Qi was attacked, it tried its best to fight back. It used its advantage in numbers to set up layers of defense, blocking the pure Yuan Qi inner Qi. However, the inner Qi of the pure Yuan art was too pure. It was like a sharp knife, breaking through layer by layer. Every time it reached a place, it would refine the layer of defense formed by the inner Qi and strengthen itself. Then, like a rolling snowball, the more it attacked, the stronger it became. Feeling the dominance of the pure Yuan Qi inner Qi, Yi Chen sighed in his heart. Quality was always more reliable than quantity. The Cloud Qi inner Qi was 5 times more than the pure Yuan Qi inner Qi inner Qi inner Qi, but it still couldn't compete with the pure Yuan Qi inner Qi. Time passed by slowly. When there was only 1/5 of the Cloud Qi inner Qi left, the Qi whirlpool suddenly collapsed and scattered. It became a disorganized mess. How could it still be a threat to the pure Yuan Qi inner Qi? Pop! As the Cloud Qi inner Qi was completely refined, Yi Chen's dantian swelled up, and his cultivation broke through from a mid-mortal realm stage 6 to the late mortal realm stage 6. Letting out a mouthful of mist-shaped Qi arrow, he stretched his body. All of his bones started to make cracking noises, which sounded like they were connected together. Only 10 days of hard work, and I have reached the late mortal realm stage 6. No wonder it is a high-rank mortal realm martial art. Training a martial art was too important for a warrior. When both warriors had the same talent, the warrior who trained a high-level martial art would always have a higher achievement than the warrior who trained a low-level martial art. This was an unchanging truth. Yi Chen had trained the pure Yuan art to the 3rd Qi coil in 10 days, and had already accumulated a lot of Qi. Now that he had refined the Cloud Qi inner Qi, it would be strange if his cultivation did not increase. Just when Yi Chun was full of confidence, a group of guests arrived at the foot of the Sky Cloud Martial School's mountain. There were 2 men and 2 women. The leading man was an old man in his 60s, with a withered face and a cold expression. He was wearing a long green robe and had an emerald tag hanging on his waist. Next to the old man were 3 young men and women. The young man was about 17 or 18 years old, with a cold face and sharp facial features. On the left of the cold-looking young man was a pretty girl who was about 14 or 15 years old, wearing a green dress with a long sword hanging on her waist. On the right was another girl who looked a little older than the pretty girl. She had a beautiful face and a proud temperament, like an orchid in a valley or a peony among flowers. The 2 different temperaments mixed together made her look even more outstanding. The pretty girl said to the beautiful girl, "Sister Shui Yin, no matter what you do, I will respect your decision. Yi Xian, I am not a picky person. Yi Chen's mother and my mother are both outer elders of the Ritter Martial School. They are like sisters. She used to take care of me when I was little and treated me very well. However, when it comes to marriage, I don't want anyone else to make the decision for me, and I don't want my future husband to live under my shadow." The beautiful girl spoke clearly, which made her look even more attractive. The pretty girl, Yi Xian, nodded and stopped talking. At this moment, the indifferent old man said, "Don't worry. Our Emerald Martial Palace is the #1 martial institution in the Windy Nation. We will not force you to compromise. With your talent, you will definitely become an inner elder in the future. Why would you waste your time on worldly affairs?" Chapter 21. Who are you? At the foot of the mountain, for guarding disciples stopped a group of people. The cold-looking young man took a step forward and said loudly, "We are from the Emerald Martial Palace. This is the Inner Master Mu Feng Yuan. Let us in." Emerald Martial Palace, Inner Master. The guarding disciple was shocked. In the Windy Nation, the disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace could do whatever they wanted when they were outside, not to mention that there was an inner elder who was basically an overlord. Even the emperor had to treat him with respect. "This way, please." The guarding disciple at the front smiled and winked at the people next to him. "Go inform the master." Soon, the Emerald Martial Palace had shocked the entire Sky Cloud Martial School. In the reception hall of the Sky Cloud Martial School, other than the few inner masters sitting on the left side, there was a middle-aged man sitting on the main seat. He was about 40 years old, with a huge frame and a pair of tiger paws on the armrest of the chair. He looked like a tiger or a dragon. He was indeed the most powerful warrior in the Sky Cloud Martial School, the leader of the school, Luo Xinglie. Normally, if it was a normal inner master, Luo Xinglie would not have to greet him personally. He could have asked the headmaster or the second master to do so. However, this time, Mu Feng Yuan was not simple. He was one of the top 10 inner masters in the Emerald Martial Palace. He was at the late clasping Yuan realm, which was not much weaker than Luo Xinglie. The headmaster, the second master, and the third master might not be weaker than him, but it would be hard for them to suppress him. For the sake of his reputation, Luo Xinglie did not want to see a situation where the host was weaker than the guest. Therefore, he had to come personally because he was the only one in the Sky Cloud Martial School who was obviously more powerful than him. On the right side, Mu Feng Yuan and the 3 young men were sitting in order. "Ha, Master Mu, what brings you here? Sorry for not greeting you earlier." Luo Xinglie laughed brightly first, then looked at Mu Feng Yuan. Mu Feng Yuan smiled lightly, put down the teacup in his hand, and said, "I hope Leader Luo will not blame us for coming without an invitation." The headmaster of the Sky Cloud Martial School was also an old man, slightly chubby. "Of course not. Our leader heard that you are here, so he came out to greet you personally." Luo Xinglie nodded, then changed the topic. "I wonder what Master Mu is here for? You can't be here just for a visit, right?" "Of course I am here for a visit, and also to take care of my junior's personal affairs." "A junior's private matter? What is it?" Luo Xinglie was a bit surprised. Mu Feng Yuan cleared his throat and asked, "I wonder if there's an outer sect disciple named Yi Chen? This is his sister Yi Xian, and the other one is also related to him." As soon as she said that, Luo, Xinglia, and a few of the Sky Cloud Martial School's inner elders looked at Yi Xian and the beautiful girl and couldn't help but compliment them. The two women's beauty was secondary. What caught everyone's attention was their cultivation. Yi Xian looked like she was not even 15 years old yet, but she had already reached the early condensing reality realm. Her Zhenqi was a bit messy, so she should have just reached the condensing reality realm not long ago. In terms of talent, the Sky Cloud Martial School did not lack geniuses like her, but there were not many of them, not to mention she was a girl. The other beautiful girl was a bit scary. She was only slightly older than Yi Xian, but she had already reached the peak of the mid-condensing reality realm. If she was given a few more months, she would definitely be able to reach the late condensing reality realm. She was so talented that she could definitely be ranked in the top 3 in the Sky Cloud Martial School, maybe even higher. Luo, Xinglia sighed quietly. The Emerald Martial Palace really had a lot of geniuses. Any one of them could compete with the most talented disciple in the Sky Cloud Martial School. No wonder they had always been the #1 martial institution in the Windy Nation. Even the North Snow Martial Academy was slightly weaker than them. "Young lady, what is your name?" The head elder could not help but ask. The beautiful girl looked calm. "Greetings, head elder. I am Ji Xuyan." "Ji Xuyan, are you a disciple of the Ji family?" "Yes." Luo, Xinglia laughed. "With a disciple like you, the Ji family's position as one of the top 8 families will be even more stable. Congratulations." "Yeah." The other inner elders nodded in agreement. "Someone, bring Yi Chen in." Luo Xinglia did not know who Yi Chen was, but he was the leader of the martial institution, so he only needed to say one word. The cold-looking young man, who had been silent the whole time, got Mu Fingyuan's permission. He stood up and said, "Leader Luo and all the elders, Lu Wuxiang has a request. He hopes that before we take care of Sister Ji, he can have a fight with Child Hans Han of your martial institution." Luo Xinglia's face froze. "You mean my son Luo Hans Han?" Mu Fengyuan smiled and said, "Lu Wuxiang is one of the top 4 core disciples of our martial institution. Fighting with Child Hans Han should not be a disgrace to him, right?" "Of course, but my son is not feeling well. He might not be able to accept this." Luo Xinglia seemed to be troubled. Looking closely, one could see that there was a hint of sadness hidden deep in his eyes. Lu Wuxiang was a bit disappointed. He still wanted to say something, but was stopped by Mu Fengyuan. "Dad!" Suddenly, a young man in blue appeared outside the guest hall. Luo Xinglia looked over in surprise. "Hans Han, why are you here?" The young man in blue looked at Lu Wuxiang and said, "Dad, just accept his request. I also want to see the power of the absolute palm, Lu Wuxiang. But don't worry, I know what I'm doing." The young man in blue was indeed Child Hans Han, Luo Hans Han, the son of Luo Xinglia. He was ranked 2nd among the core disciples, just below the hidden fragrant sword Zhu Mei. Lu Wuxiang stood up. 2 years ago, the 4 most powerful young warriors of the Windy Nation were named as the top 4 child. They were our head disciple, Child Emerald, Child North Snow from the North Snow Martial Academy, Child Duanmu from the Duanmu family, and Child Hans Han from the Sky Cloud Martial School. Right now, my head disciple and Child North Snow are trying to break through to the clasping Yuan realm, but you have lost the title of the #1 core disciple in the Sky Cloud Martial School. It is really hard to understand." Luo Hans Han responded calmly. "Zhu Mei beat me fairly and honestly. I think you all know about her power. Hidden Fragrance Sword Zhu Mei is indeed very powerful. But to be honest, she is much weaker than my head disciple. Maybe your understanding of my head disciple is still the same as 2 years ago, then you are completely wrong." Luo Hans Han didn't want to argue with the young man. He said, "Let's cut the crap. How are we going to compete?" His opponent was one of the top 4 core disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace, and was called the Absolute Palm by the young generation of the Windy Nation. His Zhenqi and palm art were extremely powerful. It was said that he was only slightly weaker than the Emerald Young Master. "Very simple, 3 palm attacks will do. It is not time for the real battle yet. As you wish, let's do it right here." On the stage, Luo Xinglia, Mu Fengyuan, and all the inner elders of the Sky Cloud Martial School were all staring at the two without blinking. It was rare to see a battle between the most powerful young warriors, especially Luo Xinglia. He couldn't hide the nervousness on his face anymore. He was both worried and expectant at the same time. Ji Shuiyan and Yi Xian's eyes were even brighter than before. To be able to witness the battle between their brother-disciple Lu Wuxiang and Chao Hanzhan, this trip was definitely worth it. Please. Luo Hanzhan took a few steps forward. One of his hands was held behind his back, while the other hand was slightly raised. Lu Wuxiang walked over with big steps. I hope you will try your best. Otherwise, you won't be able to compete with me. Of course. Chapter 22. The two stood 10 steps away from each other and started accumulating their power. After a few breaths, Lu Hanshan's face was covered in a dense purple mist. No one knew what kind of martial art he had been practicing. He let out a deep growl, then suddenly rushed towards Lu Wuxiang while launching a palm attack with his right hand. Before he arrived, his power had already arrived, and a light ripple appeared in the air. Lu Wuxiang had a serious look on his face. He stomped on the ground and cracked it, then darted out like a bolt of lightning and launched a palm attack against Lu Hanshan's. Boom! A transparent stream of air spread out in all directions, sending the tables and chairs flying. At the same time, the two figures separated and shot backwards. Yi Xian was shocked. She didn't expect that a fight between two late condensing reality realm martial artists would be so powerful. Even the heavy red sandalwood tables and chairs were blown away by the force of the impact. Ji Shuiyan was only one step away from the late condensing reality realm, so she wasn't too surprised. Of course, she knew that she was no match for these two. She wouldn't even be able to take one palm attack from them. The two of them tried their best to control their bodies, then simultaneously moved towards the middle of each other. Their bodies were releasing an intense, fighting intent that could even be sensed from a long distance away. I don't think we need the third palm attack. If this is all you've got, the second palm attack will be enough to decide the winner. A cyan-colored stream of air rose up from Lu Wuxiang's body. This stream of air was extremely sharp. The air that came into contact with it was twisted and cut apart, making a sizzling sound. Blue murderous chi, Lu Hanshan said in a low voice. The look on his face turned even more serious. Luo Xinglia, who was sitting in the main seat, was even more nervous than Lu Hanshan. This blue murderous chi was one of the most powerful martial arts of the Emerald Martial Palace. It was a low-rank Earth realm martial art and had a very obvious effect on breaking the internal Jin Qi. It was only taught to the most core disciples. Even ordinary core disciples couldn't do it. Judging from the power that was showing from Lu Wuxiang's body, he had obviously reached the 8th level of the blue murderous Qi. How amazing! But how would Luo Hanshan deal with it? Lu Wuxiang said blandly, I don't think there's any need to continue. Not necessarily. Lu Hanshan took a deep breath. Suddenly, a blue vein bulged on his forehead, then a second one, a third one. Something amazing happened. His eyes turned from black to red, then from red to purple, and at last, 2 purple streams of air came out of his eyes, drifting out. Purple Eye Ice Heart, the 8th level of the extreme purple art. Good job. Luo Xinglia was shocked at first, but then he was overjoyed. The other inner elders of the Sky Cloud Martial School all showed smiles on their faces. The extreme purple art was a low-rank Earth realm martial art, divided into 9 levels, and each level was more difficult than the previous one. Before, they all thought that Luo Hanshan wouldn't be able to rival Lu Wuxiang, but now, they didn't have to worry anymore. Seeing Luo Xinglia's excited face, Luo Hanshan was also very happy. Thinking about what he had been through in the past 2 years, he had been stuck at the 6th level of the purple extreme art, unable to make any progress. After that, he had lost to the current number 1 disciple, Zhu Mei, in the core disciple exam. Everyone thought that he had reached the end of his potential and that he might not even be able to keep the number 2 disciple in the future. Now, no one would suspect him. This time, it was Lu Wuxiang who attacked first. His palm, which was wrapped in cyan airflow, was violently thrown out, as if it was going to destroy the entire hall. Luo Hanzhan remained calm and collected. He threw out his palm to meet the incoming attack. Different from Lu Wuxiang, when his palm attack was thrown out, it didn't even make a swooshing sound. However, wherever his palms passed through, the air suddenly started to vibrate intensely, as if it was boiling water. Two palms collided. A few cracks appeared on the ground, and the violent power spread out in a spiral shape, shattering all the tables and chairs in the surroundings, as if they had been cut into pieces by thousands of knives. Facing the incoming sharp power, Ji Xian released her qi and threw out her palm in front of her body. Crackle. The incoming power was blocked by Ji Xian's palm, causing a series of explosive noises, which even made Ji Xian's face slightly pale. Fortunately, it was only the aftermath of the attack, and the power had already been reduced by 70 to 80%. Yi Xian, who was sitting next to Ji Xian, exclaimed, "If it weren't for you, Sister Xian, I would have been seriously injured by the aftermath of that attack." Ji Xian said, "The Cyan Great Murderous Qi is especially good at breaking internal Jin Qi. Combined with the pure purple extreme arts Jin Qi, its destructive power is extraordinary." Except for Ji Xian and Yi Xian, the rest of the people in the hall turned a blind eye to that fierce Qi, as if there was an invisible wall in front of them, which had absorbed all of the power. Outside the hall, Yi Chen's heart was beating fast. Is this what a late condensing reality realm fight looks like? It's so intense. It's not any weaker than the top martial artists in the 21st century TV series. I wonder when I will be able to reach this level. Tap, tap, tap. Along with the explosion of qi, Lu Wuxiang's body swayed, and he took 13 steps back in a row, each step leaving a deep footprint on ground. Luo Hanzhan took 15 steps back, and on the last step, he even broke the bricks under his feet, sinking 3 inches deep into the ground. In the end, Lu Wuxiang was slightly better than Luo Hanzhan. Throwing a complicated glance at Luo Hanzhan, Lu Wuxiang said, "I am good at palm arts after all, so this time we are even. What do you think?" Luo Hanzhan said, "Let's start the third palm attack." "No need. I have already understood your power. Although you are not as powerful as my head disciple, you have finally regained your Prince Hanshan's power." Lu Wuxiang shook his head. Luo Xinglia saw that the fight was over, so he laughed out loud and said, "The disciples of the Emerald Martial Palace are indeed worthy of their reputation, young heroes." Mu Fengyuan said, "Sorry, Leader Luo. It's nothing." Luo Xinglia was very happy. His son Luo Hanzhan had returned to the top of the martial geniuses, and he, as a father, was also proud. He grinned and said, "Hanzhan, find a seat and sit down." Luo Hanzhan nodded and said to Lu Wuxiang, "Tell Pei Wuxuang that I, Luo Hanzhan, am back." "I will." Both of them found their seats and sat down without saying anything else. Outside the hall, Yi Chun came back to his senses. He bowed to Luo Xinglia and said, "Leader, elders, disciple Yi Chun greets all of you." The head elder said blandly, "Come in." Walking into the hall, Yi Chun saw Yi Xian and Ji Xuan, who was sitting right next to her. He knew her as well. They had met a couple of years ago. She was no longer the little girl she used to be. It was just that the world had changed, and he had basically guessed why they were here. After all, their relationship was not good enough for them to visit each other yet. Luo Xinglia calmed himself down and said seriously, "Yi Chun, do you know these two?" "Yes." Yi Chun took a deep breath. "Since it is a private matter, then you can solve it in private. What do you think?" Luo Xinglia was not in the mood to care about the personal matters of the younger generation. They were not even core disciples. "Yes." Ji Xuan stood up. She said to Luo Xinglia and Mu Fengyuan, "Please allow me to talk to him in private." Luo Xinglia and Mu Fengyuan nodded. Walking in front of Yi Chun, Ji Xuan said blandly, "Let's go out and talk." Yi Chun did not say anything. He just followed her out of the hall. As for Yi Xian, she hesitated for a second, but after saying goodbye to everyone, she also followed. Chapter 23. Outside the hall was a plaza paved with white marble. A screen wall was erected on the plaza. It was 33 feet tall and 24 feet wide. It was extremely grand. Beside the screen wall, Ji Shuyan looked Yi Chen up and down. After a long time, she said, "I'm here because..." Yi Chen interrupted her and said, "I know." You know? Ji Shuyan was a little surprised. In her impression, although he was not stupid, he was definitely not smart. But this time, he seemed to have changed. Yi Chen said self-deprecatingly, "It can't be that you're here to see me." Ji Shuyan shook her head. "Of course not. Regardless of whether you've guessed it or not, I have to tell you personally that it's impossible between the two of us. So you're here to discuss the annulment of the engagement. After all, if I don't agree, it will be very troublesome for you to resolve the engagement alone. At the very least, you will have to face the dissuasion of many elders, especially since you won't be able to face my mother. She treats you very well and is like a sister to your mother. If we both agree, those elders won't be able to say anything." Ji Xian opened her mouth and found that she did not know what to say. This was different from what she had imagined. She had thought that he would be very angry. No matter what, it was humiliating to have the engagement annulled by the female side. She had already prepared a way to deal with this. That was to let him know the difference in strength between the two of them. The two of them were not compatible, and continuing to be entangled would only bring humiliation to themselves. But now, these countermeasures had become useless, and she was caught unprepared. Taking a deep breath, Ji Shuyan found that she had underestimated Yi Chen. At the same time, she felt a little sullen and said in a stiff tone, "You're right, but there is one thing you must remember. Even if you don't agree, I will still annul the engagement. You should have heard of the saying, dragons don't cohabit with snakes. The two of us are not people of the same world. I still have a long way to go in the future, and the gap between us will only grow bigger. Dragons don't cohabit with snakes." Yi Chen chuckled and said, "What a good metaphor. You think of yourself as a true dragon, and I as a little snake. However, it's too early for you to make a metaphor. It's not certain who is the true dragon. Moreover, even a little snake has the chance to transform into a dragon." Ji Shuyan could not help but let out a cold smile. The other party was simply boasting shamelessly. Based on the current situation, it was obvious who was the real dragon and who was the little snake, but he actually said that it was uncertain who was the real dragon. Did he think that one day he could become a real dragon and soar through the heavens? All right, I'm not interested in arguing with you about the established facts. I just want to ask you one thing. Do you agree to break off the engagement? Yi Chen replied without hesitation. "Why wouldn't I agree? I agree to cancel the engagement." Yi Chen knew his potential very well. As long as he had enough time, reaching the condensing reality realm, clasping Yuan realm, or even the astral reaching realm would not be a problem for him. Why would he bother with a woman? Besides, even if he didn't agree, so what? She had even invited the inner master of the Emerald Martial Palace. If he didn't agree, he would only be humiliated. Now that he had agreed, he had turned from passive to active and had kept his last bit of dignity. Of course, what she had given him today, he would definitely return it in the future. He wanted to let her know that whether or not she was a real dragon was not determined by words, but by actions. Both of them remained silent for a while. After a while, Ji Shuyan slightly scratched the crystal ring on her left hand with the middle finger of her right hand. A dim light flashed, and a manual suddenly appeared in her hand. Yi Chen's pupil shrank. A storage ring. A storage ring was a legendary treasure for normal people, but it was a must-have item for high-level martial artists. The inside of the ring had its own space and could store a huge amount of items such as gold, pellets, herbs, clothes, weapons. They could all be stored inside, and it would be weightless. He didn't expect her to have a storage ring. Among the core disciples of the Sky Cloud Martial School, only 2 or 3 people had a storage ring. This is a top-rank Mortal Realm manual, Iron Bone Godly Palm. If you can learn a thing or two from it, you will be able to beat other martial artists at the same level. But don't worry, this is not a martial art from the Emerald Martial Palace. I got it from a Jianghu bandit that I killed. It will not be a threat to you. Consider it my compensation to you. Ji Xin slightly raised her chin, as if she had just thrown out an ordinary item. I will take what I want myself. Yi Chen rejected without hesitation. What a joke, it was only a top-rank Mortal Realm manual, there was no need for him to sell his pride. Not to mention, if he accepted it, she would look down on him and think that he was a coward. Ji Shuiyin frowned. Don't you understand? With your talent, I don't know when you will become an inner disciple. Yichen said coldly, you don't have to worry about canceling the engagement. I will do what I said. If there is nothing else, I will leave now. After saying that, Yichen turned around and walked towards the main hall. He needed to report to Luo Xinglia before he could leave. Ji Shuiyin was shocked. Then she sneered. She thought that Yi Chan was doing it on purpose for her to see. Otherwise, why would he let go of a top-rank Mortal Realm manual? After all, a top-rank Mortal Realm manual was not easy to find. Unfortunately, Yi Chen was just wasting his time. She would never like him. On the way, Yi Xian stopped Yi Chen. Why are you so stubborn? Just take it. Why are you so angry? Yi Xian had a lot of power in the Yi family. Before, even Yi Chen did not dare to argue with her. There are so many manuals in the Sky Cloud Martial School. There is no need. Yi Xian shook her head and said, you have changed. You have become unreasonable. I know you are feeling humiliated, but to be honest, you and Sister Shuiyin are not a good match. Her future husband should be someone like the Four Childs, not a nobody like you. Of course, I am not belittling you. A nobody also has his own way of living. You are better at living a stable life. I am being unreasonable. Never mind, Yi Chen did not want to talk to these two arrogant women anymore. Sometimes, the more reasonable your words were, the more likely they would think that you were being calculative. If you were being unreasonable, the more aggressive they would be, the better it would be. Therefore, the best way would be to ignore them. See you at the end of the year. After saying that, Yi Chen walked into the guest hall. In the hall, Mu Fengyuan glanced at Yi Chen. At least you know yourself. Ji Shuiyin is one of the most talented disciples in the Emerald Martial Palace. She is indeed not compatible with you. Yi Chen cursed in his mind. Old man, it's none of your business whether I'm qualified or not. You people from the Emerald Martial Palace are all the same, arrogant, thinking that you're no longer a normal human being. Now, even Yi Xian has gotten this weird habit. One day, I will beat all of your disciples one by one. I will let you know that we are all humans, and the Emerald Martial Palace is nothing special. Although he thought so, Yi Chen would not say it out loud. Talking back to a late clasping Yuan realm martial artist, who is also an inner master of the Emerald Martial Palace, would be suicidal. Leader, I will leave now. Yi Chen bowed to Luo Xinglia. Luo Xinglia waved his hand. Since the problem is solved, you can leave now. Yes. Turning around, Yi Chen did not even look at Ji Shuiyin and left without hesitation. Yi Xian, who was standing right next to Ji Shuiyin, twitched her mouth. She felt a bit embarrassed. They were all disciples of the Yi family, but why was there such a huge gap between them? Ji Shuiyin said softly, I hope you will not tell Aunt Hui about this. I don't think you would dare. Yi Xian said without hesitation. Chapter 24. It had been 10 days since the engagement was cancelled. In these 10 days, Yi Chen had taken the first Windy Dew pellet. This pellet was just like the rumors said. After taking it, all the distracting thoughts would disappear, and he would feel refreshed. It helped Yi Chen to open up all the meridians in his heart, allowing his qi to flow freely under the training of the heart fire. The heart movement and qi flow were also the fourth pure Yuan art rotation. Besides that, Yi Chen had already started training the Golden Swallow art. This qi gong required a lot of qi. It had to be pure and without any impurities, or else it would be very difficult to train it to the highest level. The good thing was that the qi from the pure Yuan art was unimaginably pure, and the impurities had already been removed during the second qi rotation. When he reached the fourth qi rotation, after being trained by the heart fire, his qi had gained more spirituality, which made training the Golden Swallow art much easier. These few days, my qi is getting restless. It should be a sign that I am about to break through to the Mortal Realm Stage 7. The training speed of the pure Yuan art's fourth qi rotation is indeed amazing, but to reach the condensing reality realm is still very difficult. What can I do? To be honest, I have only been in this world for half a year, unlike other people who have been training for 4 to 5 years, or even 7 to 8 years. There is no way to compare. Ever since he knew that Yi Xian had reached the early condensing reality realm, Yi Chen knew that he had to work even harder, or else he might not be able to compete with Yi Xian at the Yi family meeting. Besides, Yi Xian, the second son of his uncle, Yi Tang, was not easy to deal with either. After all, he and Yi Xian were the two geniuses of the Yi family. He took out a jade bottle from his pocket, opened the cork, and a blue pellet rolled out onto Yi Chen's palm. Qi boosting pellet, the most commonly used pellet for mortal realm warriors. It was worth more than 3,000 silvers. Right now, Yi Chen was only one step away from the mortal realm stage 7. He might be able to break through in a week, but he couldn't wait that long. He was planning to use the Qi boosting pellet to increase his cultivation and break through to the 7th stage. This way, he could save 7 days of hard work. 7 days of hard work might not mean much to normal people, but to Yi Chen, it meant a lot. With his comprehensive ability, he could learn a high-rank mortal realm skill in 7 days. Even the top-rank mortal realm skill, the Lone Peak of 13 Swords, only took him 2 to 3 months. And that was because the Lone Peak of 13 Swords was incomplete and needed to be perfected. Otherwise, a month would have been more than enough. Therefore, these 7 days had to be saved and not wasted. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, Yi Chen flicked his finger. The blue Qi replenishing pill flew into his mouth in an arc and slid down his throat into his body. Gulp! The Qi replenishing pill melted the moment it came into contact with water, turning into an extremely pure vital energy. All of a sudden, the pure Yuan Qi rushed out of his dantian like a hungry wolf that had smelled blood. Within a few breaths, it had wrapped around the pure Yuan Qi from the Qi replenishing pill and started to refine it. Such a powerful, refining ability. If it was the Cloud Qi spell, the efficiency would be at least 2 times lower. The higher the quality of the Qi, the faster the Yuan Qi could be refined. This was a well-known fact in the true spirit continent. Of course, if the total amount of Qi was high, it would also help a lot in refining Yuan Qi. Under normal circumstances, it was not uncommon for quantity to beat quality. An hour had passed. A light popping sound came from Yi Chen's body. His dantian, which had already expanded a lot, swelled up again like an inflated balloon. In the center of his dantian, the pure and transparent cyclone suddenly sped up like a spiritual nebula, constantly swallowing and changing, absorbing the new internal Qi. After a while, Yi Chen opened his eyes and slowly let out a breath. His face was filled with joy. He had finally reached Mortal Realm Stage 7. There was not much difference between the peak of Mortal Realm Stage 6 and Mortal Realm Stage 7, but that was only for normal people. If it was Yi Chen, even a little bit of improvement would greatly increase his fighting power, and he would be able to use more of his martial skills. Today is not a good day to continue learning the pure Yuan art. I should consolidate my cultivation first. Yi Chen knew the importance of a solid foundation. If the foundation was solid, then he could continue to improve. If the foundation was not solid enough, then he would be like a castle in the air that could collapse at any time. He might even lose his mind and become a cripple when he tried to break through. After a day, Yi Chen had completely consolidated his cultivation and had even made some progress. This Qi replenishing pill could save him a month of hard work. Subtracting the 7 days he used to break through, he still had 21 days left, which was just enough for him to take another step forward. In the following days, Yi Chen took the second Windy Dew pellet and tried to break through to the 5th Qi coil of the pure Yuan art. Of course, life was not like a pool of stagnant water. After the first time he met the outer disciple Wu Zoming, the two became friends. They would chat and spar with each other during their free time. Wu Zoming thought highly of himself. He thought that although Yi Chen's achievements and martial skills were high, there was still a gap between him and Wu Zoming. He did not expect that after limiting his cultivation to Mortal Realm Stage 7, Wu Zoming would be at a disadvantage in a real fight. His high-rank Mortal Realm martial skill, Burning Fist, did not seem to be able to win against Yi Chen's King Kong Fist. He did not know that Yi Chen's King Kong Fist had already reached the highest level. under the condition of limiting his cultivation. It would be strange if the burning fist could win against him. There was no sun or moon in the mountains, and another half a month had passed. That night, Yichen applied the body-enhancing paste on his body, planning to break through to the fifth chi coil of the pure yuan art. He wanted to combine his spirit, chi, hands, eyes, and body into one. As for applying the body-enhancing paste, it was not useless. The body was one of the 6 forces of a human body. Only when the body was strong and full of energy could it increase the success rate. Pushing his pure yuan art chi to its limit, Yichen put his tongue on the roof of his mouth, his eyes focused on his nose focused on his heart, and he quickly entered the state of meditation. Walala, the outside world was silent, but inside Yichen's body, the sound of his chi flowing was like a small river, endless. For a warrior, the inner 3 forces of the 6 forces had almost been combined into one. For example, the spirit and chi. The first step for a warrior was to convert the spirit and chi into chi. The spirit and chi were already inseparable and could be converted at any time. The combination of the spirit was the spirit, and with a high degree of concentration, the two could also be combined. The difficult part was how to combine the chi and the spirit, which was called the combination of the spirit and the chi. After many days of meditation, Yichen already had an idea. With a thought, the chi flowed along the meridians to the center of the eyebrows, where the soul resided, and the soul was the spirit. After 36 revolutions, the chi that was contaminated with the soul power returned to the dantian. Yichen knew he had succeeded. He had successfully combined the spirit, chi, and the spirit. Next was the outer 3 forces. The outer 3 forces seemed simple, such as the eyes, the hands, and the body. But in fact, it was very shallow, and even a normal person could do it after hard training. The outer 3 forces of the pure yuan art was to extract the 3 types of yuan chi from the limbs, eyes, and the center of the body. These 3 types of yuan chi were closely related to the 3 forces, and they could sense each other. This was the real outer 3 forces. First, he extracted the hidden yuan chi from the center of the body. Yichen did not dare to be careless, and he was very careful. The center of the body was one of the most important parts of the human body. If there was a slight mistake, the person would become paralyzed, and it would be very difficult to cure, so he could not be careless. The chi slowly seeped into the center of the body, and then it pulled out a very obscure yuan chi and slowly merged with the chi. When the two completely merged, Yichen released the yuan chi that had merged with the chi back into the center of the body. Using the same method, when Yichen also merged the outer 3 forces with the chi, big beads of sweat dripped from his forehead, and his body was completely wet. But it was all worth it. Now that his chi contained the yuan chi in his limbs, eyes, and the center of the body, it also contained his spirit. In terms of reaction speed, subconscious speed, attack speed, and the sensitivity of his eyes, there was a qualitative change. Besides that, after the pure yuan art had entered the 5th transformation, the speed of absorbing and refining yuan chi had reached a very impressive level. 1 day of training was basically equivalent to 3 to 4 days of training in the past.